Chapter 1576. In this regard, Su Yu just smiled. If he was desperate, he would have been desperate countless times, staring at the remaining golden dragons and the silver-horned monster who showed hatred in his eyes. Su Yu said, "Yun Yazi is among them." With a flash of light, he flew into the crowd of golden dragons. When they saw this, they roared and tore at Su Yu, trying to tear him apart to avenge the Xianming Path Master. "Kill!" the silver-horned monster roared. Many golden dragons were like a golden tsunami, rushing towards Su Yu from all directions. Sinful Lady blinked indifferently, took off an ice crystal from her wrist, which looked like a scale, and threw it forward. Crack! The heaven-defying cold air that froze time and space instantly froze the entire Azura Forbidden Lands. Including the golden dragons and the silver-horned monster, they were completely frozen. Their vitality was destroyed in an instant. However, their bodies would forever stay in that space and time, frozen for eternity. Sinful Lady glanced indifferently at the golden dragons and looked at Su Yu, meaning that Yun Yazi was not here. "Come with me." Su Yu turned and disappeared between heaven and earth. Red Dust Forbidden Lands. At the entrance, surrounded by pink mist, Su Yu, Sinful Lady, and the World Annihilation Dragon arrived. The World Annihilation Dragon was impatient. "I know this place. It is one of the 3 Forbidden Lands that share the same name as the Azura Forbidden Lands. A mysterious existence is sealed here." He is clearly stalling for time. "Master, don't waste your energy and words, let me interrogate him." "Since you are here, there is no harm in taking a look." Sinful Lady looked at Su Yu, her eyes full of meaning. Su Yu's eyes flashed, and he stepped into it. Suddenly, a peaceful and harmonious world appeared in front of him. Many creatures of different races with different strengths lived together in an extremely peaceful and harmonious manner. The strong deities walked humbly with the mortals. The emperor in power talked kindly with the commoners. In this world, there was no hierarchy, only harmony, an abnormal harmony. The Red Dust Path Realm, it turns out to be the Red Dust Path Master who has been missing for several eras, Sinful Lady said leisurely. Whoosh! The world rippled, like a calm surface of water being blown by a breeze, causing wrinkles to appear. A handful of pink mist converged into a figure. It was a beautiful, picturesque woman in a red dress, full of elegance. She was none other than Mistress Red Dust. An unfathomable strong man. Mistress Hongchen sized up the Sinful Lady, then looked at Su Yu. "Is this what you want me to help you with?" Su Yu said, "I've brought him here. Whether we can succeed or not depends on you." Mistress Red Dust looked hesitantly at the sinful girl. You'd better not try anything funny, or you can forget about leaving the Red Dust Forbidden area." With that, she flicked her sleeve and vanished. The living beings that were coexisting in harmony suddenly stopped moving. They all turned their heads and stared at the Sinful Lady. The benevolent and serene creatures were now exuding negative emotions of resentment, violence, and anger. They accumulated together and formed a pitch-black tide that covered the entire dream world, devouring people's souls. Sinful Maiden said, "Good and evil coexist in human nature. The reason why these living beings are good is because they've separated the evil in their hearts." Without a doubt, the pitch-black tide was the amalgamation of the evil thoughts of the creatures that had been drawn into the Red Dust Forbidden Land for countless years. Once touched by the tide, it would immediately damage one's soul, and they would sleep here forever, becoming part of the Red Dust Forbidden Land. The World Annihilation Dragon showed a trace of fear in his eyes. Even with his magical powers, he did not dare to confront the tide easily. Only the Sinful Lady did not care. She pointed with one finger, and ice extended from her feet, instantly freezing the entire dark tide of evil thoughts. Within the black tide, a pink mist burst out in time and converged into the figure of Mistress Hongchen. Her classical and elegant face was filled with surprise and solemnity. She stared at the Sinful Lady and said, "Su Yu, who did you bring?" It could even freeze invisible and formless negative emotions. The World Annihilation Dragon laughed. It's really sad. You don't even know who you're going to face, and you dare to attack the master. You've been used by the human surnamed Su. Mistress Hong Chun stared at Su Yu angrily. You want to use me to help you eliminate your enemy? Su Yu said lightly. Didn't you know that when we reached an agreement? You and I were just using each other. However, how could she have known that Su Yu's enemy this time was so strong? Gritting her teeth, Mistress Hong Chun said, Be *starred, I've boarded your pirate ship. She turned to stare at the sinful lady and snorted coldly. No matter who you are, in the mortal Tao realm, I am the master. Mortal reincarnation. She made a seal with her hands, and the entire mortal Tao realm burst out with the sound of gears grinding. The time in the Tao realm instantly sped up 100 times. Many creatures passed through decades in the blink of an eye. They got married and had children, grew from teenagers to middle-aged, and from middle-aged to old men. After the old men died, they were reborn in this Tao realm world and experienced life, old age, sickness, and death again. As the gears bit faster and faster, time flowed faster, and in an instant it was 10,000 times faster. Almost in the blink of an eye, a creature experienced a reincarnation of birth, old age, sickness, and death. The sinful lady and the World Annihilation Dragon, who had been in it for a long time, were affected by the reincarnation. Their figures gradually became blurred, and there were signs of merging into the 10,000 times faster time. If this was the case, they would also become one of the many creatures in the mortal Tao realm. The World Annihilation Dragon was a vicious creature, but his eyes gradually became blurred, and he had already fallen into it. Sleep! Mistress Hong Chun shouted, and the gears bit faster to the extreme. Time flowed 100 million times faster in an instant. In the blink of an eye, millions of years passed. The body of the World Annihilation Dragon was completely scattered and fell into this peaceful world. The World Annihilation Dragon, an existence at the peak of the Star River, was so strangely subdued in the mortal Tao realm. The horror of this dream was horrifying. However, at this moment, the sinful lady casually stretched out 2 fingers and pinched the void. The roaring sound of gears grinding stopped abruptly, like the sound of a broken string. The entire mortal Tao realm trembled fiercely. With a scream, the pink mist around Mistress Hong Chun disappeared. Her eyes were full of shock and she shouted solemnly, Who the hell are you? 2 fingers to stop the reincarnation of the mortal Tao realm was something that even a path master couldn't do. The sinful lady's eyes were calm and she didn't say a word. The cold air around her was rampant, and with her as the center, it spread in all directions. Crack, crack. The entire mortal Tao realm turned into a world of ice and snow in the blink of an eye. The mortal Tao realm was destroyed, leaving only the meaning of ice flowing. Mistress Hong Chun was shocked. It replaced the way of the mortal Tao? Impossible, impossible. The sinful lady was silent. She looked at her and said, It's over. As soon as she finished speaking, Mistress Hong Chun collapsed and turned into a pink mist. Was she dead? Su Yu didn't believe it. Su Yu had personally experienced the strangeness of Mistress Hong Chun. She had no physical body, and could appear and hide in the dreams of any creature at will. She could never be killed. However, she was facing the sinful lady. The sinful lady slowly closed her eyes, and a faintly discernible chill turned into thousands of ice threads, piercing through the mortal Tao realm, reaching the outside world, and extending infinitely to the God realm and the lost nation. Along the way, the ice threads continued to divide into finer parts. In just a few breaths, the entire lost nation and the God realm were covered by a giant net made of ice threads. The other end of the ice threads, without exception, penetrated a creature that was sleeping. The ice threads penetrated directly into their dreams, entangled Mistress Hong Chun, who was hiding in their dreams, and pulled her back. Looking at the millions of figures of Mistress Hong Chun, Su Yu's eyes narrowed. He had done it. With a thought, he had captured all of Mistress Hong Chen's clones, leaving none behind. Su, who the hell is she? Millions of Mistress Hong Chen screamed in unison, their voices echoing throughout the god realm. Their endless resentment attacked Su Yu's soul. The sinful lady flicked 2 fingers, and the ice threads exploded at the same time, destroying the clones of the red chariot woman. Mistress Hong Chen was wiped out so easily. Su Yu was deeply shocked. The strength of the sinful lady was far beyond this world. It was indescribable. So? Are there any more dangerous places for me to go? The sinful lady said indifferently. A hint of coldness bloomed in her tone. Apparently, the sinful lady was also gradually losing patience, because she could feel something that others could not feel. It was rapidly awakening, and it had already noticed her. No. Unexpectedly, Su Yu shook his head. The sinful lady waved her sleeves, and the red dust realm that had existed for billions of years was broken into pieces, reduced to ruins. She looked at Su Yu and said, "Tell me, where is Yun Yazi?" Su Yu shook his head. "A teacher for a day is a father for life. I never intended to tell you where he was hiding." The sinful lady's calm face finally showed a hint of fluctuation. It was the fluctuation of murderous intent. "You've seen my methods, so you should understand that no one can save you and Yun Yazi." Su Yu agreed with this kind of despair. He had never felt such despair before. In front of the sinful lady, Su Yu was less than an ant. "I understand. That's why I never intended to live from the beginning." Su Yu's breath was restrained, and his whole body was indescribably fierce. He was like an unsheathed peerless cold sword, emitting an unyielding sword light. The sinful lady's murderous intent enveloped her. With a thought, she could destroy Su Yu, just like she had killed the Xianming Path Master and Mistress Hong Chen. She said indifferently, "Since you've already given up, why waste your time and lead me into danger? Deep down, you still want me to be killed by them, don't you?" "Ha ha!" Su Yu smiled mysteriously. "You're wrong. My purpose was never to put you in danger. I understand how powerful you are." The sinful lady showed a rare look of surprise, and the World Annihilation Dragon was also slightly startled. Su Yu's purpose was obvious. He was looking for all the power that could kill the sinful lady, even at the cost of provoking them and forcing them to fight each other. Wasn't that the case? They, who had countless years of experience, were slightly stunned at this moment. "Then what are you doing this for?" the sinful lady asked, her murderous intent undiminished. Su Yu smiled. There was relief in his smile. "Of course, it's for the God Realm and the Lost Nation, and for my close friends and relatives. I want to eradicate the hidden dangers that have existed for hundreds of millions of years. Whether it was the Azura Forbidden Lands or the Red Dust Forbidden Lands, they were all threats, especially the former. Having witnessed the ferocity of the Azura creatures, as well as their intentions, Su Yu's desire to kill them grew stronger. With his strength, it was absolutely impossible, but with the help of the sinful lady, it was so easy to get rid of them once and for all. The sinful lady stared at Su Yu and said leisurely, "Although you have eradicated them, don't you still have me? Do you think that if you use me, I will still treat your close friends kindly?" "Of course not, you will kill them," Su Yu said. The sinful lady frowned slightly. "Aren't you afraid that I will do so?" "I'm not afraid." Su Yu slowly took something out of his sleeve. "Why?" The sinful lady's beautiful eyebrows curved slightly. Su Yu said, "Because you have no chance." Swish. The item in his sleeve was completely taken out. It was a palm-sized puppet that was glowing with colorful colors. It was the heavenly Brahma puppet. However, it was not the one that belonged to the World Annihilation Emperor, but the one that Su Yu had secretly refined. The one that belonged to the World Annihilation Emperor was watered with the blood of the common people, and it was used to guard against the sinful lady. Unfortunately, before it could be used, it was destroyed by the sinful lady along with the puppet. The one in front of him was the only one left in the world. The difference was that it was not watered with the blood of the common people, but the blood of the ancient god Jiulong. One could imagine which was more important. As expected, when this thing appeared, the sinful lady's pupils shrank. The heavenly Brahma puppet. This thing still exists in the god realm. But then, the sinful lady's pupils shrank again. Watered with the blood of the ancient god Jiulong? It's him. For the first time, a serious look appeared in her snow-like eyes. Su Yu did not hesitate. He bit his finger and smeared his own blood on the puppet. The puppet was activated and immediately expanded 100 times, turning into a giant puppet that was tens of thousands of feet tall. Swoosh! The puppet's eyes shot out 2 beams of colorful light, full of the blood of the ancient god Jiulong. The sinful lady's face showed a trace of fear, and the chain of rules gathered on the surface of her body, blocking in front of her. Boom! The gaze of the colorful light was extraordinary, and the sinful lady's chain was bombarded until it loosened. A trace of the remaining gaze fell on her body, and the sinful lady was knocked back a few steps. The world annihilation dragon was shocked. The ancient god Jiulong, one of the 8 great ancient gods? How could his blood appear here? The sinful lady stared at the puppet, and her expression was no longer calm. She stared at Su Yu. You have hidden this thing well, and you have endured until now. Su Yu looked at her coldly. There is no need to be surprised. My original intention was for me to destroy you. His real plan had always been to rely on himself, not others. Well, I haven't really fought for a long time. The sinful lady slowly closed her eyes, and when she opened them again, her eyes were surrounded by the mysterious rule. Everything that happened just now was not her full strength. Su Yu's heart jumped for no reason, and his face darkened slightly. Nirvana Ice Seal! The sinful lady shouted, and the snow-white chain of rules penetrated the chest of the puppet, shattering half of its body. Su Yu's body shook, and his eyes became sharp. He controlled the puppet to move forward instead of retreating, and hit the body of the sinful lady with a palm. The heavenly Brahma puppet was an object that specialized in restraining souls, and the sinful lady was actually a soul body. Thud, thud, thud! The sinful lady retreated again, and fine cracks appeared on her body. The world annihilation dragon was so frightened that he roared repeatedly and rushed over to protect her. The sinful lady pushed him away, and a fierce, murderous intent appeared in her eyes. Her spotless white robe fluttered without any wind, and the rule outside of ice permeated from her eyes. She said, "You forced me to use the second rule. Human, you must pay the price." Seal of evil fate. The sinful lady struck out with her palm, which contained the path of evil fate. The palm landed lightly on the body of the heavenly Brahma puppet and was imprinted. Next, the heavenly Brahma puppet broke free from Su Yu's control and turned around to attack Su Yu. Su Yu did not expect this, but his reaction was extremely fast, and he quickly dodged. However, the great killing weapon that he used to fight against the sinful lady was now being controlled by the sinful lady. Where could Su Yu hide? "Yun Yazi, I won't catch you for the time being, but you must die first." The sinful lady saw the threat from Su Yu, and her murderous intent rose. Strangely enough, Su Yu was not as disheartened or hopeless as he had imagined, even though he was faced with a hopeless situation. Instead, the corners of his mouth curled into a strange arc with the experience of the worm pool talisman exploding. "Where did you get the courage to accept my things without any precautions?" "What?" The sinful lady was surprised and immediately looked at the puppet. Her snow-white eyes seemed to see through the interior of the puppet. When she saw something, her pretty face changed dramatically. "Stop it." Chapter 1577. "Unfortunately, you don't have the right to order me around," Su Yu said. He closed his eyes and recited a spell. The surface of the heavenly Brahma puppet suddenly flickered with flickering light, and a destructive aura comparable to the explosive flames purgatory rushed out. It was going to self-destruct. This was an additional self-destruction mechanism that Suyu had added at the beginning of the refinement. The sinful lady's face changed again. She weaved signs with her hands and operated the supreme way of sealing ice to freeze the heavenly Brahma puppet. However, the moment the puppet self-destructed, when the sinful lady cast the signs, the puppet had already exploded from the inside out. Roar! A mournful wail and fierce roar came from the inside of the puppet at the moment of the explosion. Then, it was replaced by the roar of the explosion and stopped abruptly. It seemed that some extremely ferocious creature had died in the explosion. The sinful lady's face was calm, and her ice scales were spreading. She ignored the aftermath of the explosion and stared at Suyu without blinking. "Do you know what you have done?" On the ground, pieces of charred corpses were wriggling into pieces of flesh. A huge bloody head rolled to the ground at the feet of the evil woman. The head was hideous, ferocious, and full of greed. It was none other than the 9-headed strange beast that Suyu had captured in the past. To be precise, it was a young Taotai. Now, it had died tragically in the explosion. Ding! The jade bracelet that had sealed it fell from the sky and hit the ground, making a crisp and sweet sound. Suyu picked it up and looked at the sinful lady's right wrist. There was an identical bracelet there, and even its aura was exactly the same. Putting away the jade bracelet, Suyu said calmly, "Of course I know. I awakened the ferocious creature, the Taotai. Why did you still dare to do this? With the ferociousness of the Taotai, it will destroy everything, including you and me," the sinful lady said. Suyu shook his head. "In my eyes, you are no different from the Taotai. They were equally undefeatable top experts, equally indifferent supreme beings, and equally ferocious creatures who could ruthlessly kill billions of creatures with a single thought. One more or one less, it made no difference to Suyu. Moreover, I think the first one to be destroyed by the Taotai will be you." Suyu stared at the jade bracelet on her wrist. "You were the one who held the heaven-burning puppet, and you were the one who killed the little Taotai. Even the jade bracelet that trapped it was yours. It's hard for the Taotai not to think that you're the murderer." The sinful woman stared at Suyu and asked, "Did you plan this from the start?" Now that he thought about it, he realized that Suyu had already calculated the current situation from the moment he showed himself. What made her suspicious was that the process was complicated and changeable. There were several times when the World Annihilation Dragon wanted to torture him. How could he be sure that things had developed to this point? However, when she thought about it carefully, the sinful lady realized that the seemingly complicated and ever-changing process was always steered by Suyu at the most crucial moments. Sometimes it was a single action, and sometimes it was just a few words. But he was always able to steer the course of events toward the current situation. She suddenly recalled what the woman of the Xianming Dao Master had said. "This kid is extremely scheming. If we don't stop him, we'll die at his hands sooner or later." Now that she thought about it, her words had already come true. She had died without a burial place, and the Xianming Dao Master had also perished. The entire Azura Forbidden Lands had been turned into ice and death. All of them had really died at the hands of Suyu. Even though he had lived through several eras and had extensive knowledge, Suyu could not help but feel a slight chill in his heart. What a terrifying plan! You could say that. In this world, no one can compete with you except this sleeping Taotai. Only by borrowing its power can we resolve the crisis, Suyu said. He had never placed his hopes on the heaven-burning puppet or the demon sword Wuya, but on this sleeping Taotai. The sinful woman said, "How can you be sure that there is a sleeping Taotai here?" Suyu shook his head and chuckled. "Haha, are you testing me to see how much I know? Well, I can tell you very clearly that I know that this Taotai does not exist in the two God realms and the Lost Nation." The sinful woman's eyes flickered, but she did not say a word. "Because the Lost God realm and the Lost Nation are all in the belly of this Taotai." Su Yu's words were earth-shattering. Between the heavens and the earth, there was a sudden explosion of thunder. The people in the world annihilation plate in his arms could not help but be shocked when they heard this. The Moonwatch sect master and Taichin Yunluan were all shocked. The world that they had existed in for billions of years was the belly of the Tao Tai. If it wasn't for their almost blind faith in Su Yu, they wouldn't have believed even the slightest bit of such nonsense. I also know that the stomach of a Tao Tai is not only a vessel, but also a prison. Su Yu was determined to shock them to death. He revealed another shocking secret. As if a great secret had been exposed, bolts of thunder descended from the heavens and bombarded Su Yu. Su Yu did not even look at them as he casually swept away the thunder. The sinful woman's eyes darkened a little as she stared at Su Yu. It is important for people to know their own limits, and so is their worldview. You are in the God realm, how do you know so thoroughly? Su Yu said, in this place, besides the supreme beings sealed in the three great forbidden lands, there are the remains of many super strong men in the past. I was fortunate enough to come into contact with two of them. If I am not mistaken, this place is a prison specially designed to imprison supreme strong men like you and the Xianming Path Master. Hearing this, the sinful woman completely gave up hope. Su Yu had long known the secrets of this place. Then, do you know that the furious Tao Tai will not only kill me, but also you? The sinful woman stared at Su Yu and said indifferently. Su Yu smiled lightly. Of course I know. So, I will take the opportunity to leave this place. He looked at the center of the three great forbidden lands, at the huge dark cave, and said, if I am not mistaken, the day when the Tao Tai wakes up is the day when the passage opens. That should be the navel of the Tao Tai, which leads directly to the outside world. The countercurrent passage to the Star River God Realm is the throat of the Tao Tai. He said slowly, as if he was describing the scene from billions of years ago. In the God Realm, the sinful woman was wreaking havoc. Suddenly, the incomparably huge Tao Tai streaked across the sky of the God Realm, leaving behind a huge black shadow that God Kailan could never forget. Then, the Tao Tai devoured the God Realm. However, for some unknown reason, he only had time to keep the God Realm in his mouth. Before he could devour it, he fell into a deep sleep. Part of the God Realm was swallowed into his stomach and became the God Realm that was lost today. Part of the God Realm was kept outside his mouth and had not been swallowed. It was the remnant of the Star River God Realm. The endless passage connecting the two God Realms was the throat of the Tao Tai. Now that he thought about it, the reason why the Tao Tai fell into a deep sleep was probably because he was injured in the process of sealing the sinful woman. Now that the Tao Tai had awakened, he was seriously injured and in a coma. It was hard to believe that they could live in peace. The sinful woman sighed deeply and said, I really regret not looking at you from the beginning. Compared to Yun Yazi, you are a greater threat. Roar. At that moment, a dragon's roar came from behind Su Yu. A dark dragon claw pierced through the void and slammed into Su Yu's back. It roared, it is not too late to kill him now. Bang. With a blow from a peak overlord, Su Yu was killed on the spot. However, the dragon claw of the World Annihilation Dragon seemed to have touched something and was bounced back. Looking closely, he saw that Su Yu's entire torso was actually a fragment of the Chain of Rules. In an instant, Su Yu recovered quickly with his torso as the center. The Rule of Life, Resurrection? The World Annihilation Dragon was shocked and attacked again. But no matter what, as long as a part of Su Yu's torso remained, he would never die. After several failed attempts, the World Annihilation Dragon roared. The sinful woman looked at him and said, if you can't destroy the Chain of Rules, you can't kill him. As her voice fell, a snow-white chain of the Great Path appeared behind the sinful woman. The Great Path chain of the Xianming Path Master was shattered by it. If Su Yu's torso was also shattered, there would be no room for resurrection. At that moment, a majestic and magnificent will suddenly descended. A pair of eyes as dark as ink, which seemed to be able to devour everything, appeared in the sky. Those eyes were cold, cruel, greedy, and had a domineering intention to take the world as its own. As soon as the dark eyes appeared, they immediately stared at the sinful woman. The ancient voice, which seemed to come from the beginning of time, slowly floated over. "Sinful woman! You shouldn't blame your wife and children, you're so ruthless." The voice was slow, but every word was as heavy as Mount Tai, putting unspeakable pressure on people's hearts. The sinful woman opened her mouth as if she wanted to explain, but looking at the scene in front of her, she couldn't. The puppet exploded in his hand, and the aura of the jade bracelet that bound the little Taotai was the same as hers. In addition, when the Taotia's egg was destroyed, she was nearby. She wouldn't believe it if she didn't do it. "You deserve it," the sinful woman said lightly. "If you hadn't been ordered by Emperor Xiaoyao to plot against me, you wouldn't be here today." The pair of dark eyes seemed to roll up a dark vortex. "In that case, you admit it." The sinful woman looked at Su Yu and said, "Sort of." The result was no longer important. They were already incompatible like fire and water. "It's good that you admit it." The vortex in the eyes suddenly appeared, and two dark chains shot out. They were the shackles that had sealed the sinful woman for billions of years. The sinful woman's beautiful figure flashed, and the snow-white chain collided with the seal shackles. In an instant, Su Yu only felt that the world was about to explode, and the mountains were shaking. Stabilizing his figure, Su Yu turned into a wisp of green smoke and dissipated on the spot while the two supreme existences were fighting. The sinful woman noticed it, but she didn't care about him. She said indifferently, "World Annihilation Dragon, he is yours." The World Annihilation Dragon exuded a shocking murderous aura. "Master, rest assured." With a swish, the World Annihilation Dragon chased after Su Yu. With the gap in cultivation between them, Su Yu couldn't escape for a while. However, unexpectedly, Su Yu's hands formed a seal, and a wisp of yin and yang energy appeared above his head. Unlike the previous cosmos shift, the yin and yang energy each condensed into a wing, flapping above his head. It was also shuttling between yin and yang, but this time it was a continuous shuttling. One breath was 100 million mountains and rivers, and 10 consecutive shuttles would cover a distance of 1 billion mountains and rivers. This is the real way to use the yin and yang wings of Supreme Pole. Su Yu thought to himself. In the past month of seclusion, he had thoroughly comprehended the technique that he had obtained, and today, he had displayed its great power. The World Annihilation Dragon, who was about to catch up with Su Yu, suddenly lost track of him. Its huge bloody eyes swept and locked on the bottomless cave in the center of the 3 forbidden lands. With the awakening of the Tao Tai, when Su Yu came to the top of the cave again, he clearly saw the power of the wizard ancestor. It was like a bright lamp, shining in the depths of the dark cave. Chapter 1578. He had always wondered why the epic-making dragon would say that the wizard ancestor's power was the key in his excitement. Now the truth was revealed. When the wizard ancestor sealed the epic-making dragon, he left a key and set it up. It would appear 10 billion years later today and open the cage once. His original intention was probably to give the descendants of the wizard tribe, who had been guarding this place for generations, a chance to leave the cage. In the 3 great forbidden lands, the Xianming Path Master, the Red Dust Lady, and even the epic-making dragon all took this opportunity to escape the cage. Unfortunately, the first 2 failed and were killed by the sinful lady. Looking back at the familiar god realm, Su Yu remembered the scene in front of him deeply. He silently said goodbye and disappeared into the bottomless cave. He followed the wizard power and once again descended on the platform where the heaven-fighting divine warrior's body was placed. Above it was the place where the sinful lady was once sealed. Below it was still the endless abyss, where the water of the Star River finally flowed. The wizard ancestor's power was still shimmering at the bottom of the abyss, like a bright lamp guiding the way. Coming to the edge of the platform, Su Yu took a deep breath and leaped into the endless dark abyss. The abyss was icy cold, and even Su Yu felt uncomfortable with the body of the rules. The deeper he went, the colder the air became. An hour later, Su Yu's body was covered with ice, and his eyebrows were covered with white mist. His soul also showed signs of damage, and his 5 senses were blocked. A deep sense of suffocation poured into Su Yu's heart. It was as if the abyss below was the giant mouth of a ferocious beast, waiting for its prey to fall into it. Fortunately, with the wizard ancestor's power, Su Yu identified his target and flew down. A few hours later, the wizard ancestor's power suddenly became stronger. Su Yu was shocked. He had reached the end. Under the illumination of the wizard ancestor's power, a damp place full of dried bones came into view. The walls were all wriggling flesh walls, which were the flesh of Tao Tai. Under the illumination of the wizard ancestor's power, a closed giant fleshy door stretched across the bottom of the abyss. Near the giant door, the most corpses were piled up. Their remains had not been destroyed, which showed that they were not weak people when they were alive. At the very least, they were overlords, and there were even some divine warriors of heaven and earth who had survived. On the giant door, there were traces of different depths left by the strong men who had searched for a way out. Unfortunately, as strong as they were unable to break open the giant door at all. In the middle of the giant door, there was a groove the size of a fist. It was exactly the size of the ancestral witch's power. With the groove as the center, many complicated veins extended in all directions. Su Yu took a closer look and could not help but gasp. Those meridians were actually forged from the chains of the great Tao laws. In terms of numbers, in terms of sturdiness, and in terms of the supreme pressure they emitted, the sinful girl was far inferior. No wonder so many strong men found this place and never left. This door has the great path rule chain as a formation. Not to mention them, even path masters and supreme martial artists would be left in the dust if they came here. Su Yu was secretly shocked. As he stared at the groove, his heart calmed down a little. If the ancestral wizard's power was embedded in it, it would definitely be able to activate the chain to open the door. The great beginning realm, what kind of existence is that? Su Yu murmured. The beginning of all ages, the source of everything, how magnificent and magnificent was it? What kind of legend and myth were the 8 great ancient gods and the temple of heaven? Filled with longing and anticipation, Su Yu grasped the mass of ancestral wizard's power and pressed it against the groove. As expected, when the ancestral wizard's power entered, the great path rule chain trembled slightly. The wriggling giant door shook and suddenly opened. All of a sudden, a gush of Star River water gushed in from the outside. At the same time, it was accompanied by an extremely dense divine energy. Yes, the divine energy that was distributed in the atmosphere of the world. In the God realm, there was only spiritual energy. Spiritual energy was first converted into spiritual energy, then spiritual energy was converted into mortal fairy strength, and finally, it could be converted into divine energy. However, at this moment, the divine energy filled the air and could be absorbed for one's own use at any time. Such divine energy, or in other words, divine energy, had completely subverted the training rules of the God realm. Is that the origin of all ages? Su Yu's eyes were filled with excitement. His palm involuntarily tightened around the world annihilation plate and the green hair on his fingertip. When he reached that vast and boundless world, would he be able to fulfill his long-cherished wish to travel the world hand in hand with Xia Jingyu and Qin Xianer? However, at this moment, the sound of giggling drifted over. That charming and tranquil voice was all too familiar to Su Yu. His pupils shrank slightly. You really didn't die. With a swoosh, a person flew out of Su Yu's world annihilation plate. It was Luo Xue. Her eyes were blurry, as if she had fallen into a dream. She was very similar to Kai Lin, who was obsessed with sex. Haha, Su, you didn't expect this, did you? I left a trick on this infatuated silly girl in the early years. Otherwise, I would have been killed by you. Mistress Hong Qin chuckled, exuding a powerful aura that was breathtaking. Su Yu's eyes were solemn. He was a little puzzled. The sinful lady had clearly captured the clones of Mistress Hong Qin hidden in the dreams of all living creatures. Why was the clone in Luo Xue's dreams an exception? It's strange, isn't it? Mistress Hong Qin said proudly. That's because I made an agreement with this silly girl. If I helped her win your heart, she would help me with one thing unconditionally. She didn't know that this was my unique red dust contract. If I died, the red dust contract would automatically give her half of her life to continue my existence. Although that iceberg woman was powerful and captured all of my clones, she missed this contract. Mistress Hong Qin chuckled. Su Yu secretly regretted not guiding the sinful lady to examine it carefully. How could a path master be destroyed so easily? He had underestimated such an existence. With a calm expression, Su Yu stared at her and said, "The door of the cage has been opened. You got what you wanted. Can you let Luo Xue go now?" "Haha, I can't do that. If she dies, the red dust contract will take half of my life. I don't want to do that." Mistress Hong Qin was smiling brightly. "Then what will make you give up?" Su Yu asked. Mistress Hong Qin stared at Su Yu, her fingers twirling around the hair that fell on her shoulders. She said with a faint smile, "Of course I have to complete the red dust contract. In other words, I want your heart." With a charming laugh, Mistress Hong Qin turned into a cloud of pink mist and floated into the outside world. She chuckled and said, "My intuition tells me that we will meet again soon. Where are you going?" Su Yu's eyes sharpened as he chased after her. Where do you want to go?" The World Annihilation Dragon caught up in time. The huge dragon shadow flashed and blocked the giant door, completely blocking it. His ruthless aura was like a mountain pressing down on them. Su Yu cursed his bad luck. If Mistress Hong Qin hadn't appeared and delayed him, he wouldn't have been blocked by the World Annihilation Dragon. "Finally I made it." The World Annihilation Dragon stared at Su Yu and slowly approached him. His aura was getting stronger and stronger. "I have advised the Master long ago that for a lowly and arrogant ant like you, it is the greatest mercy to use capital punishment. Unfortunately, the Master did not listen to me, causing her to be entangled by the Taotai. If anything happens to the Master, you will not be able to atone for it even if you die 1,000 times." The World Annihilation Dragon said with hatred. Su Yu said lightly, So? The World Annihilation Dragon was so angry that he laughed. His eyes were full of cruelty. "Do you think that if you fall into my hands, you will have a good end? I will make you suffer so much that you will wish you were dead." Su Yu said, "Is this another threat to torture me?" "No." The World Annihilation Dragon shouted, "What I want to do is to torture your loved ones hidden in the World Annihilation Plate. Those women you love, those good friends of yours, all of them will die because of your recklessness. I want them to bleed every drop of blood, suffer every insult, and regret their association with you. I want them to taste the most extreme torture in the world and die in pain and abuse. Then, I will not kill you. I will cut off your limbs, destroy your cultivation, and dig out your eyes. I will let you live like a beggar, living the most despicable life, living a life of regret every day. Don't worry, I will not let you die. I will not hesitate to consume my World Annihilation Dragon power to extend your life. I guarantee that you will not die even if you want to. You will live in pain for the rest of your life." Su Yu's face darkened slightly. He might not be afraid of death, but as the World Annihilation Dragon said, what he was afraid of was implicating others. His eyes were cold, and there was a hint of coldness in them. "Oh, why are you angry? Are you afraid?" The World Annihilation Dragon sneered and swept his huge dragon tail. Su Yu was caught off guard and was sent flying. The replica World Annihilation Plate in his arms was swept away by the dragon tail and fell into the palm of the World Annihilation Dragon. So what if I am angry? An ant should have the consciousness of an ant. If I tell you to kneel, you should kneel. If I tell you to crawl, you should crawl. You have no right to be angry. The World Annihilation Dragon crushed the replica World Annihilation Plate, and a cavern world was clearly visible in the palm of his hand. Many creatures inside did not know that the World Annihilation Plate had been destroyed, and they were still living peacefully. Su could even see his wife, Qin Xianer, settling down the newly joined wizard tribe creatures. Her petite figure seemed extremely thin and lovable. Human ant, who do you think I should make a move on first? The World Annihilation Dragon stared at Su with hatred, and the corners of his mouth were full of a vengeful grin. Following Su's gaze, he saw Qin Xianer, and his eyes burst into a cruel arc. Oh, then let's start with her. As soon as the dragon claw clenched, a towering giant claw emerged from the cavern world, grabbed Qin Xianer, and brought her to the outside world, in front of Su. Qin Xianer was panic-stricken. She looked at the huge World Annihilation Dragon, and her face turned pale. Xianer! Su's pupils shrank, and his silver hair danced wildly. He stared at the World Annihilation Dragon and shouted, "Let her go!" "Ha ha ha, are you anxious?" The World Annihilation Dragon laughed. "It seems that she is very important to you. That's for the best." Hiss. He tore off a piece of reverse scale and landed on the ground. He turned into a black-robed youth, threw Qin Xianer to him, and said with a grin, "Such a beautiful little beauty, even I am attracted to her. If I do it with her, she will be beautiful. Human ant, you are lucky to witness a good show with your own eyes." Qin Xianer's face suddenly turned pale, and she eagerly cast a pleading look at Su. However, she was sealed by the World Annihilation Dragon and could not move. She could only shed tears of humiliation. The black-robed youth laughed dryly and caught Qin Xianer. He said, "She is indeed a rare beauty. Hey, she is still a virgin. Ha ha, she is the best. I won't be polite anymore." Su's eyes were cold and he growled in a low voice, "You forced me to do this. I didn't want to do this." The World Annihilation Dragon sneered. "Ant, just crawl and enjoy the show with your own eyes." With a swipe of his giant claw, it turned into a giant mountain and crushed Su beneath it. Chapter 1579. This is... The World Annihilation Dragon took a breath. The Tao Tai's eye. Like a cat touching hot oil, the World Annihilation Dragon retracted his dragon claws and stared at Su. Su slowly stood up from the dent left by the huge dragon claw. The water of the Xing River stirred his silver hair and made it dance wildly. His white robe swayed with the current. His eyes were as cold as ice that would not melt for thousands of years. Even the World Annihilation Dragon felt a chill. He raised his hands and took off the ice crystal crown on his head. The crystal gem on his forehead was slowly removed, revealing a dark eye that had always been open. It was a pure black that could swallow the light of the world and devour all things. Suddenly, the pitch-black eyeballs turned and revealed a personified, playful smile. "Hey, it's been a long time." In Su's mind, the laughter of the Tao Tai echoed. "Human, you really couldn't help but release me, ha ha." Su's eyes were cold. "If you want to seal yourself again, I will fulfill your wish now." "Oh, what are you talking about? The delicacy is right in front of me. How can I miss it?" The Tao Tai smiled greedily, and the dark eyes gradually turned into a vortex as he stared at the World Annihilation Dragon. The World Annihilation Dragon's body was cold, and the dragon's crouching body had already straightened. Looking directly at this dark eye, the World Annihilation Dragon did not hesitate. It shook its huge body and fled. However, in the face of the Tao Tai's eye, the World Annihilation Dragon's body was pulled back by the devouring power. The World Annihilation Dragon was shocked. "Ant, seal this eye. I will let you go." Su's eyes were cold. Even now, he was still high and mighty, thinking that he could control the fate of all the weak creatures? Looking at Qin Xianer, who was shivering on the ground, Su Yu's eyes exuded a deep chill. Only with your blood can I teach you what it means to be equal. Under his urging, the Tao Tai's eye became round, and the devouring power reached the extreme. With a scream, the world annihilation dragon's body was swallowed in half, leaving only the lower half exposed. The huge dragon's head struggled and begged, "Stop! Stop right now! This lord! I will no longer be your enemy! It's too late. Just like how you have your reverse scale, I also have mine." He waved his hand and pulled Qin Xian'er into his embrace, hugging her tightly. As he spoke, only the head of the world annihilation dragon was exposed. Seeing that he had no hope of survival, he roared with resentment, "Human ants! I curse you! You won't have a good ending. You'll be chased by Master until there's no path to heaven and no door to hell. I'll wait for you in hell." Su Yu's face was cold and detached as his Tao Tai eyes devoured it completely. An extremely satisfied laugh could be heard in his mind. "Ha ha ha, a peak ruler is indeed a great tonic. Human, why don't you and I work together and devour this world?" Without saying a word, Su Yu put on the ice crystal crown once again and sealed the Tao Tai's eyes. Human, believe me, you will release me again. Next time, if you want to seal me again, it won't be so easy." With a trace of unwillingness, Tao Tai's voice disappeared into the depths of his mind. Crack, with a crisp sound, an almost undetectable crack appeared on the jewel hanging on his forehead. A rough crack appeared on the Taoist paper hidden within it, running through the entire Taoist paper. Su Yu took a deep breath. The Taoist paper had cracked. If there was a next time, the Taoist paper might not be able to seal the Tao Tai's eyes. At that time, the Tao Tai's eyes would no longer be under Su Yu's control. It would devour everything it saw and gradually expand until there was nothing left to devour. Then, it would devour Su Yu. "Brother Su, your third eye seems to be a very big hidden danger." Qin Xian'er raised her head, her bright eyes filled with worry. Su Yu touched her head. "If it's for you, I'm willing to do anything." Qin Xian'er's eyes were filled with tears, and she clenched her fists in self-reproach. How good would it be if she had great strength? Would Brother Su still risk his life for her? In her heart, Qin Xian'er felt guilty. "There's no time to lose. Let's leave immediately," Su Yu said. With a roll of his big sleeves, he stepped into the great world of the origin of all world. However, when Su Yu stepped out, the other half of his body seemed to be imprisoned and could not move. Looking back, Su Yu's heart trembled violently. He saw that a dark line existed in the unseen world, entangling Su Yu's left foot, which had not stepped out yet. At the other end of the line was the sinful lady, who was fighting with the Tao Tai. The path of evil fate? Su Yu's face was extremely gloomy. He had witnessed the heaven-burning puppet being controlled by the path of evil fate and becoming the possession of the sinful lady. He was no exception. "You killed my spiritual pet. Your sin is unforgivable." Following the line of evil fate, the sinful lady's indifferent and resolute will rushed into the depth of Su Yu's soul. Su Yu felt his will was being destroyed. His mind was blank, as if he had lost his sense of self. This was a sign that he was going to be occupied by the sinful lady. At this critical moment, Su Yu's remaining consciousness suddenly had an epiphany, and he took out an emperor-based saint artifact. It was the Milky Way star sand. Su Yu bellowed in a deep voice, "If you don't show yourself, I'll keep you here forever." The Milky Way star sand did not move. Qin Xian'er also did not understand why Su Yu would threaten an emperor-based saint artifact. However, when Su Yu threw the Milky Way star sand back into the Tao Tai's stomach, the Milky Way star sand suddenly shook. The crane deity flew out from it. Unlike before, the crane deity's eyes were dull, and on his back was an old man with a sage-like demeanor. That old man was exactly the same as the image left by Tianjizi in the past. "You really are not dead," Su Yu said deeply. I should have known that the consciousness in the Milky Way star sand could not be anyone else but you. In the past, the crane deity had once discovered that a wisp of consciousness had unexpectedly appeared in the Milky Way star sand. Suyu had always kept that in mind, and ordered the crane deity to pay close attention to it. However, the wisp of consciousness had never shown itself again. It was not until today that it was willing to show itself. Glancing at the crane deity, whose eyes were dull, Suyu said, "No wonder it never caught any trace of you. It turns out that it has been secretly controlled by you." Half of Tianjizi's body was white, and the other half was black. There was a grayish-white color at the border. His whole person gave off a rather eerie feeling. "I should have shown myself to you a long time ago, but unfortunately, you have that lord by your side, and I don't have the guts to show myself in front of him," Tianjizi said with a smile. The lord he mentioned was obviously Yun Yazi. "It doesn't matter how you were in the past. What's important is that I'm in trouble. If you stand by and do nothing, don't blame me for sealing the door of the cage." Suyu said, "I suppose you're hiding because you want to leave the cage and return to the great beginning realm?" Tianjizi looked at the line of evil fate on Suyu's feet and said, "You seem to think that I can definitely do it." Suyu stared at him and said, "If even the Xianming Path Master could not do it, I think no one in the God realm could." "What? The Xianming Path Master?" Qin Xianer was taken aback, staring at the old man in black and white in disbelief. She had clearly seen from the World Annihilation Plate that the Xianming Path Master had been completely erased from the world by the Sinful Lady. Tianjizi's eyes were full of smiles of approval, as if he was not surprised that Suyu had exposed his identity. He said with a chuckle, "Although I know I can't hide it from you, I'm still very curious. How are you so sure that I am the Xianming Path Master who should have been dead?" Suyu said, "It's very simple, because if I were the Xianming Path Master, since I had the ability to arrange for the Giant of the Bitter Sea to break the seal, I would definitely arrange a second way out. Obviously, you, who are inextricably linked to Princess Yunxia, are the most suspicious." Hee. Tianjizi laughed, his laughter full of disappointment. "That's right, I am the clone of the Xianming Path Master. I have the same legacy as the Xianming Path Master, but I have a different personality and memory. For this, the Xianming Path Master lost nearly half of his cultivation base. No wonder the Xianming Path Master was so vulnerable in front of the Sinful Lady." It was not difficult to explain Tianjizi's infatuation with Princess Yunxia. Although the memory and personality were different, they came from the same source and shared the same feelings. Unfortunately, Princess Yunxia was completely unaware. But Tianjizi stared at Suyu, his eyes cold and murderous. "Since you know who I am, why did you still dare to kill Yunxia?" The sudden change in the atmosphere was unexpected. Qin Xianer left Suyu's embrace, her whole body emitting threads of gray azure power. She was on guard. "Princess Yunxia asked for it," she said angrily. "Could Brother Su only allow himself to be slaughtered without resistance? The power of the undead phoenix?" Tianjizi was suddenly shocked. How is this possible? The Azura Path's second Pathmaster, the Dark Phoenix Pathmaster, was she not buried many eras ago? When did she leave behind her legacy? Surprise and joy filled his face. He could not help but laugh. "The heavens have not forsaken me. The Azura Path is saved." He pulled Qin Xianer over. After a careful examination, he was ecstatic. "It can't be wrong, it's her legacy. I can't believe that she, who disappeared all those years ago, was imprisoned in the Tao Tai's cage." With nostalgia and excitement, Tianjizi said, "Little Saint Master, come back with me and inherit the Dark Phoenix Path Master's Flame of the Way to become the new Dark Phoenix Path Master." Qin Xianer opened her small mouth, her eyes wide. She stammered, I'm not the Little Saint Master, I'm just, ha, I understand how you feel. But the fact that the Dark Phoenix Path Master chose you to inherit her legacy is definitely true." Come back with me, your appearance will shock the Azura path. Tianjizi was wild with joy. Qin Xian'er instinctively wanted to refuse, but she looked at Su Yu, who was bound by the path of evil fate, and thought about how Su Yu had opened the Tao Tai's eye for her. She suppressed the reluctance in her heart and nodded. All right. I'll go with you. Without waiting for Tianjizi's delight, Qin Xian'er said, but you must bring Brother Su with you. I'll go wherever he goes. No way. Tianjizi's expression changed, and he refused without hesitation. I can let him go once for the sake of the little Saint Master, but I will never bring him back to the Azura path. After all, he is a living being who indirectly caused the death of the Xianming Path Master. This matter cannot be hidden, and the other almighties of the Azura path will find out sooner or later. If you bring him back, won't you be suspected of being an accomplice? But, Qin Xian'er said. Chapter 1580. She was so anxious that tears welled up in her eyes. At that moment, Su Yu said gently, Xian'er, go. Qin Xian'er's tears rolled down her cheeks as she threw herself at him. No. Brother Su, if you die, what will be the point of my future? I only have you in my life. Su Yu's heart was filled with bitterness, reluctance, and deep sorrow. In the end, he had not been able to save Xia Jingyu, nor had he been able to give Qin Xian'er a warm future. All he had gotten was Qin Xian'er's lonely cry. If he left, would Qin Xian'er's bright face still be smiling? Su Yu closed his right eye, his remaining left eye filled with a wine-red glow. He teleported Tianjizi and Qin Xian'er out of the space, saying, Take care of her. Tianjizi fell into the aftermath of the red space, his brows filled with complex emotions. Finally, he let out a silent sigh. Before the teleportation, a black and white aura shot out from his fingertips, transforming into a human figure that landed in front of Su Yu. If I see you again, I will take your life. With the space teleportation, Tianjizi disappeared with the crying Qin Xian'er, entering the absolute beginning world. Su Yu felt empty, as if he had lost something in his life that he could not live without. Xian'er, Su Yu murmured, opening his eyes, his gaze filled with reluctance. Could this be the end for him and Xian'er? At that moment the human figure in front of him slowly said, Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Take what you can, leave behind the skin and the pouch. As the words fell into Su Yu's ears, he instantly understood the meaning of the words. The human figure in front of him was a pouch. Su Yu took the important items of this body and headed for the human figure's pouch. Did that mean he had to give up his current body? Su Yu was reluctant. This was a body of rules, an indestructible body. Moreover, it had cultivated many divine techniques, including the demonic path, divine path, and Azura path. If he changed his body, he would have to abandon all of this. But he had no other choice. The entangling path of evil fate tightened, and Su Yu's body was about to become the sinful woman's possession. Su Yu clenched his teeth and transferred all of his possessions to the human figure. First was the divine 9-dragon cauldron, then the 9-jade spiritual pearl, and finally the world annihilation plate. Just as Su Yu was about to throw the 9 heavenly orchid silver bamboo swords over, his body suddenly froze, and he was unable to move. Not good. Su Yu's heart sank. He had no time to transfer the heavenly orchid silver bamboo sword, so his soul immediately left his body and entered the human figure. As if it had sensed that Su Yu's soul had left, the black thread of evil fate immediately wrapped around the figure. How could Su Yu dare to hesitate? He immediately flew into the great beginning realm. The path of evil fate swept through the air and slowly retracted, leaving only Su Yu's body there. It was motionless, without any aura or soul. Right at that moment, the Tao Tai's eye between Su Yu's brows suddenly broke free and followed Su Yu. At the same time, the 8,000 divine paths behind Su Yu's physical body appeared without warning and flew away in unison. One of the stalwart figures, who was full of defiance, grabbed the Buddha bead cavern world bracelet from Su Yu's wrist with one hand. The path of evil fate transmitted the sinful lady's dissatisfaction. The gray thread entered Su Yu's body and took complete control of it. When the figure of the heaven-defying divine warrior once again grabbed the 9 heavenly orchid silver bamboo swords, Su Yu suddenly opened his eyes and launched the 9 suns cosmos sword formation, shattering the heaven-defying divine warrior's divine Laksana. Su Yu watched as the 8,000 divine paths and the Tao Tai's eye followed Su Yu, who was shedding his shell. He slowly closed his eyes and remained motionless. At this moment, the battle between the sinful lady and the Tao Tai had reached its climax. In the God realm, the lost nation had been destroyed. It was a scene of devastation, and not a shadow of its former glory could be seen. 100 million years have passed, and not only have you not weakened, but you have become stronger. The Tao Tai exclaimed. The Xiaoyao Son of Heaven's fear of you is not wrong. If you are given time, you will certainly threaten the position of the heavenly daughter. The sinful lady calmly said, You are not bad yourself, only stronger than before. So what if I am strong? It is much more difficult to seal you again than before. The Tao Tai smiled faintly. However, it is not too difficult to trap you in my stomach forever. With a shift of his thoughts, the giant door that had been open for a long time slowly closed. The sinful lady's face changed, and her beautiful figure disappeared from where she was, sweeping towards the exit. The Tao Tai laughed. Do you think I will let you out? The devouring power descended from the sky, blocking the way of the sinful lady. The sinful lady looked calm. With a wave of her sleeves, a devouring power swept out, almost crushing, and went straight to the exit. Along the way, many powerful creatures in the God realm also found this passage, but when they encountered the fight between the 2 great supreme martial artists, they were crushed into dust. When they rushed to the giant door, only one person could pass through the narrow gap, and a group of lucky creatures could be vaguely seen, who were lucky enough to leave the cage and step into the great beginning realm. Close. With a laugh, the Tao Tai closed the giant door. At the moment when the door closed, although the sinful lady could not pass through, she took off the bracelet on her wrist and threw it out. Humph! Tell the sinful lady palace where you are? It is useless. They can't save you. The Tao Tai did not care, and the 2 giant eyes that appeared in the sky were full of greed. Come on, let me see if you will break through my magical body, or if you will become my devouring object. The sinful lady looked back indifferently and stared at the Tao Tai. The 2 great supreme martial artists fought again. All the holes in the forbidden land of 10,000 demons merged into one. The epic-making dragon looked up at the drastic changes in the world, and his eyes were full of excitement. Ha ha ha, as expected, the cage has finally opened. Now it should be closed, right? The epic-making dragon revealed a mysterious smile. With Su's good fortune, he should have reached the great beginning realm by now, right? There was a hint of pity in his eyes. Su Yu, don't blame me for being ruthless, but everything has a price. You have gained so many benefits from me, and you will have to repay me eventually. Why don't you bear the seal for me? At the end of his words, his eyes were full of playfulness. He had never helped Su Yu wholeheartedly, but he had a purpose. He took out the dragon pearl, and with the pure power of the epic-making dragon stored in the dragon pearl, he performed a supreme dragon technique. Dragon Abyss Treasure Scroll, stealing the sky and changing the sun. The epic-making dragon looked solemn as he performed the mighty dragon technique. It was a secret technique from the Dragon Abyss Treasure Scroll. All of a sudden, the world darkened, and a mysterious black shadow covered the epic-making dragon. When the black shadow dissipated, the epic-making dragon, who had been sealed in this place for billions of years, had mysteriously disappeared without a trace, leaving only the empty chains. No, to be exact, there was a replacement under the chains. It was a person, Su Yu. The scent of the Dragon Abyss Treasure Scroll was faintly discernible on Su Yu's body. This was the reason why the epic-making dragon had imparted the supreme legacy of the dragon to Suyu. Only when Suyu had cultivated this book could the epic-making dragon abyss treasure scroll be activated, and the two of them would be exchanged. The epic-making dragon would obtain eternal freedom, while Suyu would replace him and suffer endless suppression. The epic-making dragon's hearty laughter lingered in the world. His laughter reverberated in front of the giant door at the same time. The body that was supposed to be abandoned by Suyu was replaced by the epic-making dragon. When he sensed the scent around him, his maniacal laughter came to an abrupt halt. This is still a cage. The epic-making dragon's eyes widened. He was puzzled, confused, and angry. Impossible. I clearly sensed that his soul scent disappeared from the cage and went to the great beginning realm. I should have taken his place in the great beginning realm. How could I still be in a cage? How could he know that Suyu's body, which had cultivated the Dragon Abyss treasure scroll, had been abandoned? The real Suyu had already stepped into the great beginning realm. His painstakingly plotted plot, his preparations full of expectations, had been destroyed in a single move. However, this was not the worst part. The worst part was that he had coincidentally appeared in front of an indifferent woman with a wanton chill all over her body. She stared at him and said lightly, "Epic-making dragon? Well, it just so happens that my spiritual pet has died. You can be my new spiritual pet." On a snowfield that was covered in icy fog and covered in snow all year round, a woman in palace attire with a powerful aura comparable to the divine warriors of heaven and earth stood tall. An ice flower was carved between her brows. Suddenly, she raised her hand and grabbed a bracelet that was flying towards her from the void. Looking at the bracelet, the woman in the palace attire burst into tears. "Sinful lady, finally there is news of you." The jade bracelet trembled and projected into the void. There were only 2 lines of words. "I am fine and I will return. With my life, I will kill one person with all my strength." The aura of his soul is left in the jade bracelet. The woman in the palace attire knelt and said, "Yes, sinful Lady Palace, listen to me." Behind her, the sound of people kneeling and worshipping could be heard. Looking around, there were countless women in palace attire with the same ice flower carved between their brows, like floating clouds. Their aura was at least that of a Star River overlord. The highest was the woman in the palace attire, who was at the peak of the divine warrior of heaven and earth. Stepping into the great beginning realm, the icy water was piercing. Suyu hid in the shadows and kept floating up to the surface of the water. This figure was not a physical body, but a body forged by the power of Azura, which could be used as a temporary vessel. "I need to find a body to host my soul," Suyu said secretly. At this moment, a faint smell of blood rippled in the icy water. A corpse slowly sank from the top of Suyu's head. It was the corpse of a young man who had just died. There was a fatal wound between his brows, which had crushed his soul. After pondering for a while, Suyu's soul left the figure, turned into a mass of purple light, and drilled into the corpse. The wound between his brows healed quickly. His eyes, which were originally tightly shut, suddenly opened, and a deep and cold light shot out of them. "The body is a little weak. It only has the strength of a stage 4 mortal fairy, not enough to reach the level of a god." Suyu was a little regretful. However, the stronger the body, the more difficult it was for the soul to adapt. Suyu's soul could perfectly integrate with such a weak body. He did not choose this body rashly. Wow, at this moment another body sank which had just been killed. Oh, is there a killing on the water? Suyu thought about it and floated straight to the surface of the water. He at least wanted to know where this place was. In particular, he wanted to find out where the Azura realm was. "All servants, listen to me. The young master is dead, and the servants of the Shui family should be loyal to him. Kill him." Suyu was underwater, standing with his hands behind his back. He saw a strange flying wooden ship with ice and fire feathers being besieged by 3 feather-shaped boats. There were rows of masked men standing on the boats, each holding a shadowless long sword, besieging the ice and fire ship. Their long swords were very powerful, with only the hilt and no blade. However, with a casual wave of the sword, one person on the ice and fire ship died. He was either pierced between the eyebrows and his soul was crushed, or he was directly split in 2. Shadowless sword? Su Yu's eyes showed a strange look. The servants on the ice and fire ship were not weak, but under the siege of the mysterious black-clothed men and the strange shadowless sword, it was a one-sided massacre. Brothers, kill them all, and Murong Chinching is at our mercy. A black-clothed man licked his lips and laughed. The black-clothed men on the 3 boats flashed toward the ice and fire ship at the same time, and began a bloody massacre. Chapter 1581. After pondering for a while, Su Yu jumped out of the water and landed on a small boat. Coincidentally, the black-clothed man on the boat was in the air, and did not guard against someone underwater, so he opened his lower body defense. Su Yu grabbed a divine sword that had fallen into the water and touched it lightly. The sword energy entered his lower body and rushed out from the top of his head. The black-clothed man turned his eyes and fell into the water. The sudden change alarmed the black-clothed young men on the other 2 sides. Shui Yu is still alive? The 2 black-clothed men screamed as if they had seen a ghost. Su Yu was ruthless. With a tap of his toes, he shuttled between the 2 boats like a series of shadows. Before the 2 black-clothed men could react, their eyebrows were broken and they died in disbelief. After killing the 2, Su Yu landed on the ice and fire ship with a long sword in his hand and glanced at the people on board. "Ah, young master, you are not dead," the hunchbacked old man who was their leader said in surprise. It was this old man who led the people to fight just now. Young master? It was only then that Su Yu realized that the body he was occupying had an extraordinary status. After thinking for a moment, Su Yu put away the strange look in his eyes and smiled warmly. "I have an extraordinary treasure that has cured the fatal wound between my eyebrows. Don't worry, everyone." On the ship, many servants were relieved. Only the old man's eyes were full of doubt. He said, "Young master, when did you cultivate such brilliant swordsmanship?" "They are all level 5 Cavern World Masters." "Cavern World Masters?" Su Yu was stunned. He secretly looked at the 3 corpses and understood. The so-called Cavern World Masters should be the gods of the ancient god realm, who could create their own cavern world. Su Yu had seen many things and responded quickly. "If I didn't secretly prepare a backup plan, I wouldn't be standing in front of you." The old man was surprised. "Young master, you have secretly cultivated great swordsmanship. It is beyond my expectations." The doubt in his eyes dissipated, and he said respectfully, "Young master, let's continue our journey. Don't miss the day." Su Yu's eyes flashed. He had no idea where this ship was going or what its purpose was. If he asked now, wouldn't he expose his identity? "Oh, let's continue our journey," Su Yu said calmly as he walked toward the cabin. Before he entered, he said, "Come in for a moment, I have something to discuss with you in private." The old man did not suspect anything. How could the young master not discuss the assassination with him? However, not long after he entered the room, a wisp of pale light shot out without anyone noticing. After a while, the old man walked out with blank eyes. His mind was blank, and he didn't remember what had happened in the room. Inside the cabin, Su Yu's eyes were filled with surprise. This place is actually the savage border of the great beginning realm, the Sea of Constellations. He had obtained a lot of important information from the old man's soul search, including their current situation. The Sea of Constellations was extremely vast, and the influences were intricate and complicated. What surprised Su Yu the most was that there were 3 divine warriors of heaven and earth here. Each of them ruled over a region of the Sea of Constellations, and for hundreds of millions of years, they had been in awe. This body belonged to the Shui family. It was a clan under the rule of a world dominator, and it was in charge of a region of the sea. This time, this body was ordered by the clan to go to another clan in the sea region and form a marriage alliance with them. Unexpectedly, he encountered an ambush along the way, and his body perished on the spot. It was fate that I occupied this body, Suyu said leisurely. Go in peace. I will take good care of this body for you, and I will also treat your people well. As soon as he finished his thought, something seemed to leave Shui Yu's body. That must be Shui Yu's lingering obsession. Only then did Suyu have the heart to examine himself. After a while, Suyu sighed helplessly. It's a pity that the body of law and the cosmos sword formation are gone. The magical powers and precious techniques that I cultivated in the past are gone too. How troublesome. Suyu frowned. In addition to the soul techniques, the 8,000 divine paths, and the simple sword path, Suyu was not much stronger than the level 5 Cavern World seniors in terms of divine technique. The most troublesome thing was that the incomparably powerful celestial energy sphere in that body was not taken away. Now, Suyu had no divine power in his body. The 8,000 divine paths had fallen into a deep sleep and could not be activated. The divine paths of time, space, life, death, and soul were all asleep. The divine path of life. Suyu frowned deeply. He had finally obtained the blood of the sinful woman, but the divine path of life had fallen into a deep sleep. Without this, how could he revive Xiaojingyu? Fortunately, after careful consideration, Suyu confirmed that there was a solution to the situation before him. As long as Suyu succeeded in one thing, he could regain control of many divine paths. That was, to become a god. Once he cultivated the source of God, the 8,000 god Daos would awaken, including the life god Dao. Before my abilities recover to their peak, I'd better make use of Shui Yu's identity as much as possible, Suyu said to himself. The sea of constellations was complicated and treacherous, and traveling alone was definitely not a wise move. After thinking for a while, Suyu tried to open the 9-jade spiritual pearl. However, he was shocked to discover that the spiritual pearl seemed to have been locked, and he could not open it. What's going on? Suyu was extremely shocked. Not only were many of his important items inside, but Xiao Dai, Xinggu and the rest were also inside. There was also the most important supreme growing soil. He tried to open the space in the Buddha bead, but to his surprise, he couldn't open it either. Suyu could not even activate the World Annihilation Plate. Suyu could not help but break out in a cold sweat. However, Suyu had always been a calm person, and after thinking about it for a while, he suddenly realized something. These things had followed Suyu for many years and had left a deep impression on him. Now that Suyu's body was completely different, how could he gain the recognition of these things? Understanding this, Suyu felt a lot more at ease. As long as he broke through the realm of gods, he could refine those imprints one by one and open them one by one. The difficult part was the current situation. Apart from the soul techniques, Suyu had lost all his magical treasured techniques, treasures, and powerful assistants. Even if he encountered a level 4 Cavern World senior, Suyu would be in grave danger. Suddenly, Suyu's eyes lit up. His soul energy surged, and a green wooden sword flew out from the top of his head. The wooden sword was the lifelong legacy that Demon Sword Wuya had left for Suyu before he passed away. It was full of supreme swordsmanship. This legacy had been transferred to this body along with Suyu's soul. Is it the will of heaven, forcing me to recultivate swordsmanship? Suyu smiled bitterly. He had never seriously cultivated swordsmanship, and now, swordsmanship was the only thing he could learn. Forget it, the entire legacy of a divine warrior of heaven and earth is enough for me to surpass my peak, Suyu said. In the vast sea of constellations, there were only 3 divine warriors of heaven and earth. Suyu had obtained the legacy of a divine warrior alone, which made many absolute beginning creatures envious. If this legacy was leaked, even the 3 divine warriors would be alarmed. Holding the green wooden sword in his hand, Su Yu immediately comprehended the sword will in the green wooden sword. The divine path of time was dormant, and Su Yu helplessly found that the time acceleration of 1,000 times that he was used to could no longer be used. He could only comprehend it step by step. Fortunately, Su Yu's experience was extraordinary, and he had the experience of practicing the 9 Suns Cosmos sword formation. In terms of sword will, it was the same as demon sword wuya, and his comprehension was like divine help. 1 month later, the butler led the servants back and forth to patrol around the spacecraft. All of a sudden, a sharp sword chi shot out from the cabin and almost destroyed the upper half of the cabin. The butler was caught off guard, and his whole body surged with divine power to resolve the sword aura. The servants nearby were not so lucky, and all of them were injured by the sword aura. The butler was surprised. What kind of powerful swordsmanship did the young master cultivate? The sword just now was comparable to a full blow from a level 4 Cavern World senior. Clang! The sharp sword returned to its scabbard, and the sword aura quickly disappeared. Su Yu had an ordinary divine sword hanging from his waist. He stepped out and said apologetically, "The wounded will be treated immediately." The butler said, "It's okay, just superficial wounds. Young master, we are almost at the Murong Island, I hope you are ready." Su Yu nodded. On this trip, Shui Yu represented the Shui family and came to the Murong family to marry one of the famous daughters of the Murong family. Su Yu was reluctant, but before his strength was restored, it was not advisable to do anything unexpected. In particular, everyone knew that Shui Yu was deeply in love with Murong Qingqing. "Yes, I'm looking forward to it," Su Yu said. The butler's face was full of smiles, but when he turned around, he sighed softly. The spacecraft arrived at the Murong Island, and Su Yu was surprised. Nominally, it was an island, but in fact, it was a giant tortoise the size of 10 cavern worlds. It had been sleeping in the constellation Sea for many years, and its exposed shell gradually gathered people, forming a group of creatures led by the Murong family. From the soul-searching, Su Yu learned that many forces' territories were built on similar strange giant beasts. Some of them were still alive, and their positions were constantly changing. The great beginning realm is extraordinary indeed. There are so many giant beasts of heaven and earth. I can't even imagine it in the God realm, Su Yu said to himself. Ha ha! The Shui family is here to welcome you, Murong Feng. A handsome man who looked to be in his 20s led a crew to welcome them. The butler said hurriedly, "I dare not. How could I let the Murong family's master welcome me personally?" He secretly winked at Su Yu, telling Su Yu to quickly come forward and greet him. Su Yu sized him up. A level 1 cavern world master with decent strength. In Su Yu's eyes, he was merely decent. "Oh, it's the Murong family's master. Shui Yu has been rude." Su Yu came forward and cupped his fist. Murong Feng's eyes flashed, and his eyes showed a hint of surprise. When facing Su Yu, he had the illusion that he was facing an emperor. It was as if the young man in front of him was someone who had been in a high position for a long time. Murong Feng found such a preposterous feeling inconceivable. Shui Yu, aren't you being too arrogant? How could you be so polite to the Murong family's master?" A handsome young man who looked very similar to Murong Feng criticized. Indeed, as a junior, Su Yu looked straight ahead and cupped his fists in response to his elder, as if they were peers. It was indeed disrespectful. "It doesn't matter. I've long heard that the Shui family is full of talented people, but I never thought that the inexperienced junior would be so outstanding. Neither servile nor overbearing, calm and composed. Not bad, not bad," Murong Feng praised. The handsome young man's face was filled with hostility. "Who is he? Shuelei is more like him." Shuelei was the most outstanding youth of the Shui family's current generation. He was also Shui Yu's elder brother. His qualifications and talents were among the best. At such a young age, he already had the strength of a level 3 cavern world master. The family master thought highly of him, and the whole family respected him. They had long secretly regarded him as the future successor of the Shui family. On the other hand, Shui Yu was not mediocre, but compared to Shui Lei, he paled in comparison. "Elder Qingyun, don't be rude," Murong Feng scolded. He smiled at Su Yu. "You must be tired from the journey. Please come in and rest." This young man was also a seemingly young cultivator of the older generation. The housekeeper had a mission and was extremely nervous. Every word and action was cautious. Just as he was about to nod in agreement, Shui Yu smiled calmly. "Murong family's master is too polite. Let's get down to business." Everyone was disappointed. What an impatient young man. With such a character, it would be difficult for him to achieve great things. The housekeeper secretly tugged at Su Yu's sleeves, hinting for him to be careful with his words and actions. Only Murong Feng was surprised. He had met countless people. He could tell who was impatient and who was shrewd with just a glance. Su Yu did not give him the impression that he was impatient. Instead, he was like a condescending superior who did not care about complicated etiquette. He realized that he could not understand the young man in front of him. He smiled. "All right, I'll arrange the ceremony immediately." The Murong family had already made the necessary preparations. In front of the ancestral shrine in the mansion, all of the Murong family's respectable members had arrived. The Shui family was represented by Shui Yu. Both parties met in front of the ancestral shrine. Su Yu also saw the famous number 1 beauty, Murong Qinqing. Her light purple dress trailed on the ground, accentuating her slender figure. She looked like a purple tulip. Her black hair was tied up in a bun. Her face was covered with a thin veil, concealing her face. Only a pair of beautiful eyes could be seen. Although Su Yu could easily see through her face, he had no interest in it. In fact, he only glanced at her casually and then paid no more attention to her. "Nephew Shui, did you bring the document?" Murong Feng asked. Su Yu was expressionless. He took out the marriage contract with the Shui family's seal. All the Murong family had to do was put their seal on it, and the marriage contract would be established. Murong Feng was satisfied. "Not bad. Since both parties have already come to an agreement, let the marriage contract be established." He took out the Murong family seal and stamped it on the contract. Chapter 1582. Murong Feng frowned slightly. "What's the matter, Elder Qingyun?" Elder Qingyun stared at Su Yu and said, "I just feel sorry for Qincheng. The Murong clan obviously has a better marriage partner. Why did you choose him? This is really unfair to Qincheng." Murong Qincheng was Elder Qingyun's granddaughter. Her talent and appearance were above average, so she was naturally valued by him. He was really reluctant to marry her to an ordinary person like Shui Yu. Murong Feng was displeased. "Elder Qingyun, we have already discussed this. Shui Lei is the best choice, but he already has a wife. It is not suitable for Murong Qincheng to marry him. Only Shui Yu is suitable." Apparently, Shui Yu was not their first choice. They had no other choice. Su Yu smiled inwardly, as if nothing had happened. Elder Qingyun's eyes flashed. "She doesn't have to marry into the Shui family, right?" "The Shui family is not the only family that is qualified to marry into the Murong family." Murong Feng interrupted him and said, "Elder Qingyun, enough is enough. Marriage is very important. Not everyone is suitable. There must be a foundation of trust. In the sea of constellations, besides the Shui family, who else can be trusted?" These words rendered Lord Azure Cloud speechless. However, he was still unwilling. "We can sign the marriage contract, but Shui Yu must be tested in front of me and Qincheng." Murong Feng put down the clan seal. He knew that Elder Qingyun would not let this go. He frowned and said, "Qingyun, don't be presumptuous. Shui Yu represents the Shui family. Please show some respect." Seeing that they were arguing, Su Yu put one hand behind his back and the other on the hilt of his sword. He said casually, "It doesn't matter." Looking at Elder Qingyun, Su Yu said, "What kind of test do you want?" Elder Qingyun snorted. "You talk big. I just don't know if you will be shocked to hear it." "Go ahead," Su Yu said expressionlessly. Elder Qingyun said bluntly, "You are too weak to match Murong Qingqing. If you want to marry her, you must ensure that you become a cave world master one day. Only then will she not be wronged." Become a cave world master? Su Yu shrugged. A level 5 cave world master was no match for him. "I don't expect you to be as talented as Shuelei, but you must be qualified to become a cave world master. What this old man wants to test is precisely this qualification." Elder Qing Yun ignored the dissuading gazes of the other Murong family clansmen and shouted sternly. It was extremely difficult for a mortal fairy to become a cave world venerable, even in the absolute beginning realm, which was filled with divine power. Sure. What he got was a simple and clear reply from Su Yu. "How do you want to inspect it?" Elder Blue Cloud was taken aback, but he soon recovered. He took out a multicolored insect and struggled in his hand. "Divine Dao bugs?" someone said, not surprised in the slightest. The rest of the people looked as if they were used to such a sight. The butler beside Shui Yu sighed and looked at Shui Yu with pity in his eyes. Before he came here, he had already considered what would happen today. As expected, the Murong clan made things difficult for Shui Yu, and they made things difficult for him so that he could not get out of the situation. Everyone knew that Shui Yu's talent was mediocre, and his achievements in the divine path were even more ridiculed by outsiders. Until now, he had not cultivated his own divine path. The current test was clearly intended to humiliate him, to let everyone know that Shui Yu was a useless piece of trash who would never become a cave world venerable in his lifetime. In this way, Su Yu would not be able to marry Murong Qingqing, and when he returned to the clan, he would face even greater ridicule. Then give it a try. Su Yu's expression was calm and composed, without the slightest hint of nervousness. The onlookers were slightly taken aback, secretly thinking that Su Yu's behavior was strange. Elder Qing Yun sneered coldly. "You can still be so calm in the face of death. This is one of the few good points you have. Unfortunately, reality is always cruel." With a flick of 2 fingers, the divine Dao bug landed on Su Yu. Elder Qing Yun continued, "Don't move. After 10 breaths, if you have the possibility of breaking through to the cave world venerable, the divine Dao bug will light up a color. If not, it means that you are not qualified. Then, I am sorry to say that I cannot agree to Qingqing marrying you." Murong Qingqing's snowy eyes stared at the divine Dao bug, and it was not difficult to see the nervousness in her eyes. If she was asked if she was willing to marry Shui Yu, the answer would naturally be no. The one she really liked was Shui Yu's brother, Shuelei. Someone with talent and a promising future was the kind of person she was willing to marry. As for marrying Shui Yu, she only felt uncomfortable all over, and her mood was extremely gloomy. Fortunately, Elder Qing Yun tried his best to stop it. What was even more gratifying was that Shui Yu had somehow lost his mind and agreed to the talent test. Murong Qingqing was overjoyed, as if she could already see the scene of Shui Yu's failure, his face full of frustration and dejection. As she thought of this, her face was filled with a long-lost sweet smile of relief. However, the result was not as everyone had predicted. The divine Dao bug reacted. As soon as it landed on Su Yu, the divine Dao bug seemed to be greatly stimulated. It shrieked incessantly, and a pair of 5-colored wings flapped desperately, emitting 5 different colors all over its body. The strange scene caused everyone to be astonished. Strange. Is this divine Dao bug sick? Normally, even if the examinee's divine path was newly formed, only 1 color would flash, representing the type of divine path. Occasionally, there were Heaven's Prides who cultivated 2 divine paths at the same time, who would show 2 colors. However, what did it mean when all 5 colors flashed at the same time? Cultivating 5 divine paths at the same time? And each of them was very mature? Is this possible? Ever since I was young, I've never heard of an existence capable of cultivating 3 kinds of divine Tao at all. Elder Qin Yun looked puzzled as well. He asked, "What did you do to this bug?" Su Yu shrugged. "The bug is yours. How could I have done anything to it?" The divine Tao bug had sensed the 8,000 divine paths sleeping in Su Yu's body, so it was naturally very excited. Elder Qin Yun sucked the bug into his palm and examined it carefully. There was no problem. Murong Feng tried to smooth things over. "Qin Yun, that's enough. Don't be presumptuous. Even if the divine Tao bug's test results are problematic, since it can flash colors, it must have the talent to break through to the cave world venerable level. There has never been an exception since ancient times." Although Elder Qin Yun was unwilling, he could only watch helplessly. The divine Tao bug was indeed like that, and the test results had never been false. This Xueyu, for some reason, the test results were a little different from the rumors. How incredible! Wasn't there a long time ago that Xueyu had mediocre qualifications and couldn't pass the test of the divine Tao bug? I find it strange too. This isn't a secret, is it? Could the rumors be wrong? The butler who had come along with them was dumbfounded. He clearly remembered that the master of the family had personally tested with the divine Tao bug. At that time, the divine Tao bug hadn't reacted at all. How could it be now, after thinking about it? He could only attribute the reason to the divine Tao bug before him. There was something wrong with it. 99% of the people who thought the same thing as him. Murong Qingqing's eyes were dull, as if she had fallen into great despair. Her expression was miserable. Wisps of desolation and grievance shot towards Su Yu along with her eyes. Su Yu, on the other hand, took the contract document with a calm expression and handed it to Murong Feng. Murong Feng smiled. Although there were twists and turns, the result was not beyond his control. However, right at that moment, a shapeless sword light pierced through the sky and brushed past Su Yu's cheek, nailing the document in his hand to the ground. Insolence! Murong Feng was furious as he looked up. 2 figures, one old and one young, stood high up in the sky. When he saw them clearly, Murong Feng's anger subsided. Suppressing his anger, he said coldly, "So, it's the Divine Feather Clan." The 2 figures each had a pair of pure white wings. Their hair was snow-white, and they looked elegant and noble. They were the famous Divine Clan in the constellation Sea. They were a 6th-grade clan, the Divine Feather Clan. The Divine Feather Clan was not weak in the constellation Sea. They were superior to the Murong and Xue families. Among the hundreds of forces in this area, they were undoubtedly one of the 3 most powerful families. In contrast, the other 2 barely managed to squeeze into the top 10. The old Divine Feather Clan did not say a word. He only chuckled as he stood guard beside the young Divine Feather Clan member. The young Divine Feather Clan member said with an arrogant expression, "Murong family master, you would rather marry Qingqing to a piece of trash than marry me?" The young master of the Divine Feather Clan, Tuobalun, had pleaded with the Murong family many times to marry Murong Qingqing. Murong Qingqing was very willing, because in terms of fame, future, and talent, Tuobalun was better than Xuelei. Marrying him was the dream of almost every young girl. Unexpectedly, after being rejected several times, he showed up in the end to stop her personally. Murong Qingqing was overjoyed, and she cried tears of joy. Murong Feng coldly stared at Elder Blue Cloud, and the latter's mouth curled into an imperceptible smile. Evidently, he had been stalling for time to wait for the arrival of the Divine Feather Clan. Murong Feng said indifferently, "Although your Divine Feather Clan is powerful, you are not powerful enough to interfere with the internal affairs of my Murong family, right? Do you know that your actions are already considered a provocation? It is enough for my Murong family to declare war on you." Tuobalun laughed arrogantly and confidently. If your Murong family has the guts, why don't you try attacking my star palace? Impudent! Murong Feng roared. Tuobaluan ignored the threat and said indifferently, Junior is merely speaking the truth. Murong Feng's eyes slightly squinted, but he could not refute. It was because he indeed did not have the gut. The gap between the two sides was too big. If the Murong family really did this, it would be suicide. I came today only to take Murong Qingqing away. Didn't your Murong family want a marriage? My divine feather clan will bestow you one. Tuobaluan threw down a stack of documents, which had the clan seal of the divine feather clan. As long as Murong Feng left the Murong family seal, the marriage between the Murong family and the divine feather clan could be concluded. Murong Qingqing's heart was pounding with happiness, but she did not forget to look at Elder Blue Cloud with gratitude. Qingqing, come with me. Be my Tuobaluan's wife. Tuobaluan sucked in the air and took Murong Qingqing away. However, at that moment, a low voice slowly floated over from below. Sir, don't you think you are looking down on me? Suyu was like a speck of dust that had been ignored, speaking in his own voice. He wiped the blood on his cheeks, which had been scratched by the sword light, and raised his eyes slightly. A trace of coldness blossomed in his eyes. Shadowless Sword. Chapter 1583. Tuobaluan seemed to have just noticed Suyu, casting a condescending glance at him. His eyelids drooped slightly, his brows slightly arched, looking extremely contemptuous. You are Shuiyu, the toad lusting after swan meat, aren't you? Tuobaluan said lightly, give me a reason to take you seriously. Because you are weak, or because you are pitiful, or because you are the second young master of the Shui family. Sighing, Tuobaluan said, why are there always so many people in this world who think too highly of themselves and do not open their eyes to see the world? I, Tuobaluan, have no obligation to take you seriously, do you understand? Suyu did not say a word. In the eyes of others, he was speechless. Only he knew that he did not want to respond. Young Master Shui. Murong Qingqing walked with light steps, arriving in front of him and bowing slightly. I am grateful for the love you have shown me. But, if you truly love me, please don't ruin my future, okay? One of you is still far away from becoming a Cavern World Master, and the other is already a Level 3 Cavern World Master, and the future successor of the Feather God clan. Qingqing can imagine who will be the happiest with. I hope you can let me go, young master. Murong Qingqing said firmly, if you want me to kneel and beg you, I will not hesitate to do so. Such resolute words were a disgrace to any man. However, Suyu's face was calm and indifferent, and he said leisurely, then kneel. His words startled Murong Qingqing, and her snow-like eyes flickered with anger. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that he was trying to provoke her. Murong Qingqing was a proud and noble lady. How could she kneel to a person, and a mediocre one at that? Young Master Shui, are you trying to make things difficult for me? Murong Qingqing asked. Suyu looked at her, and his eyes focused on her for the first time. He said lightly, you said it yourself. I did not force you to kneel and beg me. Beside him, Elder Qinyan raised his brows and bellowed, Shuiyu, don't be presumptuous. If Murong Qingqing kneels to you, how can she keep her face? Hee. Suyu laughed. Face? Let me ask you, you obstructed the engagement 3 times, and even invited outsiders to take my fiancé away in public. Have you ever considered my face? Your Murong family's women have dignity, but my Shui family's people are despicable and shameless. Do you think you can do whatever you want to me? Suyu retorted sharply. At this point, it had already escalated to the face of the 2 great families. If Suyu retreated and returned to the Shui family, he would not have a good ending. Murong Feng's expression was gloomy. He shouted in a low voice, enough! All of you shut up! The shout was filled with the boundless divine power of a Level 1 world venerable in a cave abode. It shocked Elder Green Cloud so much that his eyelids twitched. The elder from the feather god race stood in front of To'obalun, his eyes filled with wariness. After all, he was the patriarch of a large clan. If he really showed his might, who would dare to look down on him? Morong Fong stared at To'obalun and the old man as he said coldly, "Both of you, if you're here to observe the marriage ceremony between Morong clan and Shwe clan, Morong Fong welcomes you. If they deliberately came to cause trouble, don't blame me for not knowing who the young master of the feather god race is." His fierce words made the old man even more fearful. He secretly suppressed To'obalun, who was about to explode. Morong Fong swept his eyes across and stared coldly at Elder Green Cloud. He said, "I have been patient enough with you. If you don't know what's good for you, don't blame me for disregarding seniority in the clan and punishing you according to the clan rules." Elder Green Cloud clenched his fist. In the end, he did not dare to disobey. Instead, he glared at Suyu with hatred in his eyes. He did not dare to vent his hatred on Morong Fong. He only dared to resent Suyu. Morong Fong said, "Let the marriage ceremony continue." He took the document and stamped the big seal on it in a simple and efficient manner. The document had been completed, and the marriage ceremony had been set. Morong Chingching's face was deathly pale, and her whole body was trembling. The greatest anger she had ever felt was that she had given hope only to be disappointed. If Tuobalun had not interfered, Morong Chingching would have accepted her fate. However, the result made her extremely indignant. "I don't want to." Morong Chingching's fingers dug into her palms as she screamed. Her snowy eyes were filled with hatred as she pointed at Su Yu and said, "I, Morong Chingching, do not want to marry such a good-for-nothing. I can't become a cavern world master, and I can't get the position of the Shwe family's master. I can only be an elder of the Shwe family in the future. If I follow him, how can I have a day of success?" Morong Feng's eyes turned cold. He shook his sleeves, and a huge force slapped Morong Chingching away. "Bastard!" Cough. Morong Chingching coughed out a few drops of blood, but her eyes were still stubborn. "I don't accept this. I don't want to. I will never marry such a good-for-nothing. Guards, punish him according to the family rules." Morong Fong was thoroughly enraged. At that moment Su Yu the instigator said, "Master, please wait." Morong Fong said apologetically, "I have embarrassed myself in front of young Master Shwe. I, Morong Fong, have failed to manage my family properly. I have raised such a shameless junior." Su Yu put his hands behind his back and said, "No. I think what Miss Morong said is not unreasonable. From her standpoint, who would want to marry a mediocre person?" No one had expected Su Yu to speak up for Morong Chingching. Morong Fong thought for a moment and immediately found a way out. He did not want to become a laughingstock during an engagement ceremony. Therefore, he snorted at Morong Chingching. "Did you see that? You injured young Master Shwe with your rude words, but not only did he not hold it against you, he even spoke up for you. For his sake, I will let you go this time. Go back and reflect on your actions. You are not allowed to leave the mansion." Unfortunately, not only did Su Yu's persuasion fail to ease the tension between them, it was Su Yu's mockery in Morong Chingching's eyes. With a bitter laugh, Morong Chingching yelled, "You with the surname Shwe, you want me, Morong Chingching, to marry a mediocre person like you? Dream on." Anger rose in her heart. Morong Chingching took out a wave-shaped crystal sword out of nowhere and stabbed it at Su Yu from a close distance. The body of the sword contained the divine power of a level 1 world venerable. Unless one was a world venerable, it would be impossible to block this sword. Morong Feng's pupils shrank. He became anxious and yelled angrily, "Vile spawn! How dare you!" If Shwe was really killed by his fiancée in the Morong family, he would become a laughingstock. The two clans would become a blood feud. The anger in his heart was unimaginable. However, Morong Chingching pulled out the sword so suddenly that no one expected it, so he could not react in time. Seeing that Su Yu was about to be killed by the sword, Su Yu himself was calm. His hands, which were originally behind his back, only lowered his right hand, and a simple and unadorned divine sword fell from his sleeve. Holding the divine sword in his hand, Su Yu immediately displayed his swordsmanship. His swordsmanship could not be considered brilliant, but it was exquisite in its shrewdness, uniqueness, simplicity, and cleverness. It was originally an ordinary divine sword, but it was like a high-level spiritual sword, carrying with it a wonderful sword will. Su Yu thrust the sword back, and it landed on the hilt of Murong Qingqing's sword. The hilt of the sword shook violently, and Murong Qingqing felt as if she had been electrocuted, and the sword fell from her hand. The sword in Su Yu's hand reversed in the air. The tip of the sword was originally sliding towards her throat, but the hilt changed, and it hit her shoulder. Puff! Her lips parted, and she spat out a mouthful of blood again, her body flying backward. ***, how dare you hurt my Qingqing? Elder Qingyun felt sorry for his granddaughter, and he was instantly enraged. He caught Murong Qingqing, and pulled out a black and white divine sword from his back. The sword contained a great sword will, and it added 30% sharpness to the sword energy. Coupled with his strength as a level 2 Cavern World Senior, under this sword, the probability of a level 1 Cavern World Senior losing his life was as high as 90%. However, what surprised the onlookers was that not only did Shui Yu not escape, but he also charged forward with his sword. Even Elder Qingyun was extremely surprised. He did not dare to really kill Shui Yu, because he knew the severity of the consequences better than Murong Qingqing. However, it was too late for him to retract his sword, and his face turned extremely ugly. Demonic moon revolving style. Su Yu bellowed, and the spiritual sword in his hand swept out, drawing an extremely mysterious trajectory in the air. A circular sword arc was born from that trajectory, and it swept out. Clang! Elder Qingyun's black and white divine sword was instantly counterattacked, and after a few shakes, it fell from his hand. The remaining sword energy pierced through Elder Qingyun, cutting his clothes into strips, and his purple gold crown was sent flying. His black hair was disheveled, and he was in a sorry state. Elder Qingyun froze on the spot, as if he was in a dream. He could not believe what had just happened. Murong Feng, who was rushing to the rescue, also stopped in his tracks, and stared at Su Yu in shock. The onlookers were also shocked by the strange scene in front of them, and they stood rooted to the spot. After a long while there were gasps of surprise. What? Did I see it wrong? He actually gained the upper hand with a single sword strike? That is not the point. The point is that he is only a level 4 mortal fairy. Murong Qingqing is a level 1 Cavern World Senior, and Elder Qingyun is a level 2 Cavern World Senior. The difference between a mortal fairy and a Cavern World Senior was like heaven and earth. There were many cases of people surpassing levels to win in the same realm, but such a great victory was unheard of. Tuobaluan, who was watching from the side, narrowed his eyes, and it was not difficult to see the shock on his face. The elder of the Feather God clan also narrowed his eyes and exclaimed, "What a mysterious sword technique! It seems to be even more brilliant than the inherited sword technique of the Feather God clan." Su Yu stunned everyone with a single sword strike. He put away his long sword expressionlessly and looked at Murong Qingqing. The ancients say that the river flows east for 30 years, and then west for 30 years. How did you know that I would be stagnant in the past? Everyone sighed with emotion. Before this, Elder Qingyun had solemnly tested Shui Yu to see if he had the potential to become a Cavern World Senior. The result was that he already had the strength of a Cavern World Senior, and he was comparable to a level 2 Cavern World Senior. What made people feel that the world was unpredictable was that Murong Qingqing kept saying that Shui Yu was mediocre and had a dim future. But in reality, she was not even a match for Su Yu. Moreover, since ancient times, How could a genius who could defeat a cavern world senior as a mortal fairy be mediocre in the future? At least, Tuobaluan and Xue Lei of the same generation had never done it. Murong Qingqing was more resentful than surprised, because she had lost face in front of everyone. She raised her snow-white eyes, gritted her snow-white teeth, and said stubbornly, "I admit that I underestimated you, but so what? You are still not as good as Tuobaluan, and you are not as good as your brother Xue Lei. You can have my body in this life, but you can never have my heart." Everyone sighed silently. How could the proud Murong Qingqing lower her head on such an occasion? Her reaction was not unexpected at all. Chapter 1584. His words caused an uproar among the crowd. Murong Qingqing was extremely beautiful and famous. Which young man wouldn't be interested in her? That's not right. I've heard that Xue Yu has been in love with her for a long time. What's going on now? Isn't that simple? Let me ask you, if the woman you love is clinging to another man right in front of you, would you still publicly announce that you still love her? Oh? I get it. He's a young man after all. He wants dignity and face. Since Murong Qingqing embarrassed him, he naturally wouldn't let her have it easy. Hearing the discussion, Murong Qingqing felt humiliated. She stared at Su Yu with hatred. "I hate you." Su Yu shrugged, not caring at all. "Take Murong Qingqing to the wall reflection room. She's not allowed to come out for a year." Murong Feng yelled. He then stared at the Feather God clan's guests and said, "You too, the ceremony is over. Go do what you need to do. Forgive Murong Feng for not being able to keep you company." After saying this, he led his clansmen and Su Yu back to the mansion. Tuobaluan's expression flickered, especially when he looked at Su Yu. The old man beside him sighed lightly. "Qingyun is a fool, but Murong Feng is very shrewd. He won't fall for our tricks easily. Breaking up the alliance between the Murong and Xue family will be impossible unless Murong Feng is also a fool." Tuobaluan's eyes revealed a depth that didn't match his age. If not for Xue Yu hiding his strength so deeply, we might have succeeded. In the end, Murong Feng didn't want Murong Qingqing to be ruined by marrying Xue Yu. However, after Xue Yu revealed his hidden strength, Murong Feng's attitude clearly changed. "Young master, let's go back and report. The alliance between the Murong and Xue family is unstoppable. We should also think about whether we should look for an alliance in the cave of 10,000 dragons in a year." Tuobaluan's eyes revealed unwillingness. "Humph. Alliance won't be that easy." In the Murong mansion, Murong Feng's tone was much warmer. He tried to ask Su Yu about the origin of his sword arts, but Su Yu gave him vague answers. After talking for a while, Murong Feng couldn't get any useful information, so he couldn't help but secretly praise Su Yu, who said that Xue Lei was the only talent in the Xue family. The second son, Xue Yu, was also a rare talent. He had hidden his strength for more than 10 years without leaking any information. From this, one could tell that he was good at enduring. At this moment, Murong Feng felt that it was rather strenuous to converse with him. It was as if he was not talking to a young man, but an old monster that had lived for tens of millions of years. Not only had he failed to dig out Su Yu's secrets, but Su Yu had also unearthed many of his secrets. Xue Yuntian is really lucky to have cultivated 2 outstanding juniors. Unlike me, Xue. Murong Feng sighed emotionally. After spending some more time with Han Xian, Su Yu stood up and took his leave. Murong Feng's expression turned serious. He dismissed everyone except for Su Yu. "Nephew, Xiao Yuntian should have instructed you to bring something back this time, right?" Su Yu did not know what was going on. He nodded calmly. "Yes." Murong Feng did not suspect anything. He took out an old geomantic compass. It seemed to be quite old. "This is the dragon-seeking plate that your father Xiao Yuntian and I found back then. It originated from the 10,000 Dragon Cave. Take it back and give it to your father." 10,000 Dragon Cave? Where was that? Suyu did not understand. He accepted the dragon-seeking plate calmly. You have just offended the Divine Feather Clan. I am worried that they will not let you off the hook on your return trip, so I have sent a few elders from the clan to escort you in secret, Murong Feng said. Suyu nodded. Thank you, Murong family master. There is no time to lose. I feel that it is wiser to set off immediately. I'm ready. Go. Soon, 4 level 2 elders accompanied Suyu into the Sea of Constellations. Murong Feng sent them off, saying, For elders, this trip may not be peaceful. You must not leave your side and protect your nephew. We understand. The 4 elders knew the importance of protecting Suyu and did not dare be careless. The ice and fire spaceship was activated. It immediately sped through the endless sea of constellations, heading straight for the island where the Shui family was. 3 months later. They were only a month away from the Shui family. The crew heaved a sigh of relief. Young master, the disordered Star Island is just ahead. Is there anything you need to purchase? The housekeeper asked. The disordered Star Island was the largest black market in the area. There were countless people from all walks of life. But it was also because of this that they could buy rare items that were hard to find in the market. Shuiyu used to come here often in search of a secret technique to break through to the cavern world master level. The housekeeper knew what was bothering Shuiyu, so he reminded him. Suyu pondered for a moment, then said, The spaceship will hide by the shore. I will enter the island with the 4 elders. The housekeeper will follow. The rest of you will wait on the ship. The disordered Star Island was made up of the wreckage of many giant ships. There were many living creatures on the island, and there were all kinds of races. Suyu chose a remote port and entered the island. Who is the most famous weapon dealer here? Suyu asked the housekeeper. He did not have a suitable weapon and was looking for one. The housekeeper was familiar with the place and said, The official dealer on the surface is naturally the Starry Pavilion. They have businesses all over the Sea of Constellations. But if it is the black market, it is the master of the disordered Star Island, the king of the disordered star. The former has a legitimate source of goods, so there is no need to worry. The latter has good quality and low price, but they will not be responsible for taking the goods away. Suyu thought for a moment, then said, Let's go to the Starry Pavilion. His strength had not reached its peak yet, so he wanted to save as much trouble as possible. Young master, items from the Star Pavilion are very expensive. The butler looked troubled. Suyu was startled. The butler said, Young master, you don't have much left. As the second young master, he didn't even have the money to buy a divine weapon? Isn't this a little too strange? It wasn't convenient for him to ask, so he pretended to know and nodded. Yes, I know, but it's good to go and take a look. That won't be a problem. The butler breathed a sigh of relief. The Stellar Tower was located in the northern region of the Chaotic Star Island, opposite the Chaotic Star King's southern palace. Young master, the rules of the Star Pavilion are still the same. No one is allowed to fight after entering. Otherwise, no one will be able to walk out, the butler reminded. The Star Pavilion had a powerful background, and no one knew who was behind it. However, their shops could be found everywhere in the Sea of Constellations. Just think about it, in a place like the Sea of Constellations, where all sorts of good and bad people mix together, for them to be able to obtain the tacit approval of the 3 great divine realm sovereigns at the same time and wantonly expand, how small could their background be? Of course, in the beginning, those in the Sea of Constellations who were stubborn and unruly naturally didn't believe it. However, none of the troublemakers in any of the starry pavilions were able to leave alive. It was said that there was once an overlord-level heavenly venerable who lost his temper in an ordinary star pavilion because of a trivial matter. In the end, he never came out again. After that incident, the outlaws of the Sea of Constellations were in awe of the Star Pavilion, and no one dared to provoke it. Later, many forces wanted to befriend the Star Pavilion, but they were all rejected without exception. It was like a transcendent force embedded in the sea of constellations, neither provoking others nor befriending anyone. Su Yu said, "Understood. If it wasn't necessary, he really didn't want to cause trouble." Stepping into the Star Pavilion, it was indeed orderly. The hustle and bustle of the other shops had completely disappeared. Some sneaky thieves also didn't dare to step into the Star Pavilion. The reverence the Sea of Constellations had for this place was clearly felt. Su Yu came to the weapons shop, and the person in charge of the counter was a slightly plump businessman with a warm smile on his face. Looking at this person, Su Yu couldn't help but remember that he had met a businessman named Hu Xiaodai in the Blue Mountains of Jiuzhou. The two of them relied on elixirs to earn a lot of crystals. Then the two said goodbye, and Su Yu gave him a sum of money. After that, there was no news of him. Now that he thought about it, he had either turned into dust or was hidden in the boundless world. A thought flashed through his mind, and Su Yu asked him, "I want to see some handy divine weapons." The chubby merchant looked at the 4 Level 2 Cavern World seniors, who were always by Su Yu's side, and was secretly surprised. This man should be the young master of some great family. Even when he goes out, he is protected by 4 great men. The smile on his face was immediately full. "Young master, what level of divine weapon do you want? Is it spirit level, saint level, or emperor level?" "Show me first," Su Yu said. After the introduction of the slightly plump businessman, Su Yu suddenly understood. The so-called spirit level weapon was the so-called spiritual artifact in the ancient god realm of 9 dragons. And the saint level weapon was the fairy artifact in the ancient god realm. The so-called emperor level was the emperor-based saint artifact in the ancient god realm. However, even in Taichu, emperor-based saint artifacts were not everywhere. The emperor level referred to here was the imitation of the emperor-based saint artifact. The real emperor-based saint artifact was called the true emperor weapon. After understanding this, Su Yu looked at the price. He didn't know if he didn't look, but when he did, he was shocked. The price of the lowest spiritual artifact was as high as 100 Taichu dollars. The Taichu dollar was the unified currency of the Taichu realm and could be used everywhere. Usually, a level 4 mortal fairy could only earn 100 Taichu dollars after working hard for a year. For example, a cavern world venerable like the butler only earned 1,000 Taichu dollars a year. After deducting expenses, there was almost nothing left. Su Yu suddenly felt embarrassed. He couldn't even afford a spiritual artifact. At this time, several strong figures walked out of the deeper part of the material market. The leader was a young man with a strong body and the power of thunder in his body. He looked straight ahead and walked straight out of the pavilion. When he passed by Su Yu, he stopped and squinted at Su Yu with a fake smile. "Second brother, what a coincidence to meet you here." When the butler saw this, his face changed and he hurriedly saluted. "Greetings, young master." He looked terrified and awed. "Young master?" His identity was revealed. "Shuele." Su Yu said calmly, "Yes, what a coincidence." Shuele was slightly puzzled. In the past, when Shueyu saw him, he would either feel inferior or restless. This was the first time he had seen such a calm expression. He said, "Haha, I was lucky enough to not fail you. I have bought all the yellow spring flowers. What about you? Have you enjoyed the generous hospitality of the Murong family?" Anyone with a discerning eye knew that Shueyu would be put in a difficult position if he went to the Murong family. Shuele's words were naturally sarcastic. "Fortunately, they are still polite to me," Su Yu said calmly. The butler thought to himself. It was more than polite, it was courteous. The second young master's stunning performance had amazed everyone. "Then what are you doing here? Buying a divine weapon?" Shuele glanced at the counter and teased. "Have you forgotten that you still owe me 30,000 Taichu dollars? When will you have the money to buy a divine weapon?" Chapter 1585. To avoid being exposed, Su Yu said calmly, "Can't I just look around?" Shaking his head, Shuele said, "This place is not for a penniless person like you." Hearing his words, the chubby merchant's expression towards Su Yu became much colder. He said with a faint smile, "Mr. Shui, there is a batch of special items that need to be dealt with. I wonder if you are interested?" What was a special item? It was a defective item that could not be sold. The butler was furious. "What do you mean? Are you looking down on our second young master?" The 4 Level 2 Cavern World seniors also stared at the merchant with dissatisfaction. His words were somewhat insulting. But even though they were angry, they did not dare to cause trouble here. The chubby merchant was still smiling. "I was just giving you a small suggestion. If Mr. Shui is not satisfied, you can look for another place. This counter does not accept credit." Such a tone and manner of speaking were really infuriating. "Ha ha!" Shuele laughed and patted Su Yu's shoulder. "Second brother, I have met the cabinet master of this place a few times, and we can be considered to be friends. Do you want me to plead for you and let you borrow a weapon?" Su Yu was unfazed and said calmly, "You don't have to worry about me." He looked at the chubby merchant. "Where are the special items?" The chubby merchant was secretly disdainful. He impatiently threw over a small cavern world and said lazily, "They are all inside. Feel free to look around." Su Yu was in the mood to use a weapon. He would use any weapon he could, and there was no room for niceties. He only had 80 Taichu dollars on him, which was just enough to buy a special item. Su Yu could not help but be disappointed as he scanned through them. As expected of a special offer, almost all of them were damaged and not a single one was complete. When Shuele saw this, he smiled and said, "Second brother, it's better to put a divine weapon on credit. You're not the only one who wants to find treasures in the special offer. These items have already been flipped through countless times. If there really is something good, it won't be yours." What kind of place was the Random Star Island? It was a place where crooks and honest people mixed together. There were countless opportunists. There were as many people as the hairs on a cow trying to find something valuable from the defective goods of the Star Pavilion. Unfortunately, there were countless experts gathered in the Star Pavilion, and no one could compare to them in the art of treasure appraisal. Those that were deemed defective by them would definitely lose a lot of value, and there were few exceptions. As time passed, no one paid attention to this. Su Yu turned a deaf ear to him. He retracted his gaze and was about to return the item. Suddenly, his powerful soul felt a tingling pain, and he couldn't help but glance at the cavern world again. After examining it carefully, Su Yu discovered a broken sword with a chip on its blade. The body of the sword was rusty and the material was extremely ordinary. In terms of grade, it could only be regarded as a low-grade spiritual weapon. Among the divine weapons in the cavern world, it was the lowest existence. Is it this sword? Su Yu couldn't help but doubt his own senses. However, after many years of experience, Su Yu had developed a habit of patience. He would not make a decision easily until the very end. After pondering for a moment, Su Yu wrapped his soul around the sword and tried it carefully. At first, there was nothing special about it, but gradually, Su Yu felt a slight pain in his soul, as if ants were gnawing on it. At the edge of the broken blade, there was a faint glimmer of elegant moonlight. Su Yu's eyes flashed, and he immediately retracted his soul. However, he did not immediately roll up the sword. Instead, he chose a broken imperial divine weapon and looked pleasantly surprised. "Haha, I want this sword. Shopkeeper, how much is it?" The shopkeeper was bewildered. Could it be that Su Yu had found a divine weapon that he had missed? He couldn't help but look at the divine weapon. It was a spear engraved with a complex script. A strange look crossed his face as he said, 1,000 Taichu coins. Only 1,000? Su Yu was shocked, and the joy on his face deepened. I didn't expect the heaven-splitting spear of the Heavenly Bull tribe, a fifth-rate divine tribe, to fall into my hands. All right, shopkeeper, I want this spear. Heavenly Bull Tribe? Shuelei sneered coldly. Second brother, if you want to trick me into buying this piece of scrap iron, please use some clever means. I didn't know that you were proficient in the language of the foreign tribes. Unexpectedly, after the shopkeeper looked at it, he stared at Suyu in surprise. Tsk, I didn't expect someone to recognize the heaven-splitting spear. If I had known, I would have offered a price of 2,000. If this item fell into the hands of an expert, it would be worth more than 2,000. Really? Shuelei frowned and looked at Suyu in surprise. He thought for a moment, then stared at the heaven-splitting spear, his eyes burning. Is what shopkeeper said true? The shopkeeper glanced at him, his face darkening. The Starry Pavilion has a clear rule that every word spoken to a customer in the pavilion is not to contain any lies. Haha, good. I want the heaven-splitting spear. Shuelei licked his lips. 1,000 Taichu coins had been obtained, and he had sold it for a profit of more than 1,000 Taichu coins. This was not a business that one would see often. The shopkeeper said, The Starry Pavilion has a rule that it belongs to whoever sees it first. He has to be rich first. Shuelei said. The shopkeeper looked at Suyu. Suyu said, Can I buy it on credit? The shopkeeper shook his head. The Starry Pavilion has a rule that no credit is allowed. Young Master Shui, the heaven-splitting spear is yours. Shuelei laughed, took out 1,000 Taichu coins, and made the deal on the spot. He patted Suyu's shoulder and said, Ha ha ha, thanks to you, second brother, I can earn 1,000 Taichu coins out of nowhere. His tone was full of humor. Suyu clenched his fists and glared at him angrily. He looked around the cavern world for a while before taking out a rusty iron sword with a helpless look. A sword forged by the 9th-rated tribe, Water Lady tribe, low-grade spirit level. Considering the damage, it's not even a spirit level. The shopkeeper sized it up and made a judgment. 30 Taichu coins. Suyu took out the remaining 80 Taichu coins and reluctantly took out 30. Ding ding dang dang. However, Shuelei was one step ahead. He threw 30 Taichu coins on the table and said with a smile, You're welcome. Take it as a reward of 1,000 Taichu coins for me. The shopkeeper saw this and secretly sympathized. At the same time, the young master of the Shui family, Shuelei, bullied Shueyu. Not only did he snatch away the heaven-splitting spear, but he also bullied Shueyu everywhere. It was hard for Shueyu to survive until this day. Thank you, big brother. Strangely, Suyu suddenly smiled and grabbed the Taichu sword. He asked the shopkeeper, The Starry Pavilion won't go back on their word and take back the items that were sold, right? The shopkeeper was surprised and suspicious. He said, The Starry Pavilion has a clear rule that it will never be taken back. After hesitating for a moment, he said, However, the Starry Pavilion has another clear rule. The pavilion has the right to reappraise the damaged weapons selected by the customers. Otherwise, you have to tell us your findings in person. Otherwise, we have the right to take them back. Is that so? Suyu put down the iron sword with a faint smile on his face. Shuelei, who had been complacent, suddenly felt that the atmosphere was not quite right. Could Shueyu have discovered something else? Thinking of the heaven-splitting spear, Shuelei's good mood turned gloomy. Shopkeeper, is it possible to condense moonlight? Suyu asked. The shopkeeper was startled and said, Yes. As a world senior, it was not difficult for the shopkeeper to create moonlight with his divine strength. With a wave of his sleeve, a clear moonlight shone on the iron sword. All of a sudden, the damaged part of the iron sword responded, shining with beautiful moonlight. Suyu clenched his fist and hammered on the iron sword, smashing the rust on its surface and revealing the original body of the iron sword. It was an ordinary iron sword with a dark color. After taking a closer look, Suyu grasped the hilt of the iron sword and gave it a hard pull. With a click, he pulled out a long sword that was condensed with moonlight from within the iron sword. The sword light was misty, elegant and beautiful, like a beautiful woman. The shopkeeper was shocked. Mother-child sword. The so-called mother-child sword was a sword hidden within a sword. It looked like an ordinary iron sword on the outside, but inside it was a special moonlight sword. Wait, could this sword be? The shopkeeper fixed his eyes on the sword, and some information flashed through his mind. He was shocked. Could it be the imperial divine sword left by the Water Lady tribe, Beauty Under the Moon? Imperial divine sword. Shwele was shocked. Staring at the divine sword surrounded by moonlight, he could not believe his ears. The shopkeeper was deeply moved, and the way he looked at Suyu changed. If finding the heaven-splitting spear was luck, could finding the beauty under the moon also be luck? This iron sword had been tested by the experts of the Starry Pavilion in countless ways and was confirmed to be a low-grade spiritual artifact. However, they had never thought of using moonlight to test it. But Suyu knew. Mr. Shwe, you are really a god. I admire you, the shopkeeper said. Now, this beauty under the moon belongs to Mr. Shwe. Suyu nodded and put it away without hesitation. When he turned around, he met Shwele's eyes and said, "Thank you, big brother, for the 30 Taichu coins." When he finished speaking, he left the Starry Pavilion and went straight to the ice fire ship that was parked outside the island. The shopkeeper was very proud. He walked past the gloomy Shwele with his head held high and jogged to catch up. He was Shweyu's personal housekeeper. Over the years, he had been implicated and bullied. Today, he felt like he had turned over a new leaf. If he had to describe the feeling, it would be that he was overjoyed. After catching up to Shweyu, the butler was grinning from ear to ear. The joy in his heart could not be concealed even if he wanted to. Haha, second young master has gained a lot of face. To think that the great young master is so arrogant, and in the end, he spent money to buy an emperor-grade divine sword for second young master. This old servant thinks that he might not be able to calm down for a whole month. Suyu smiled faintly, unconcerned. However, I don't understand. Why did second young master expose the heaven-splitting spear? The housekeeper said regretfully. Second young master did not do anything. I could have tried to raise money for young master to buy it later. The purchase and sale cost more than 1,000 Taichu coins. Now, it all belongs to the young master. The corners of Suyu's mouth curled up, and he smiled elegantly. Do you think I am such an impetuous person? The housekeeper was startled and said thoughtfully, no. He might have been in the past, but the Murong family seemed to have been reborn. They were calm and composed, as if they had become another person. That is, do you really think the heaven-splitting spear is so easy to sell? Suyu chuckled. The weapon of the Heavenly Bull tribe is different from the weapons of ordinary races. Only those with the bloodline of the Heavenly Bull tribe can activate it. In other words, unless the Heavenly Bull tribe buys it, no one else can use it. Shwele was anxious to embarrass me, so he did not try to activate the spear. He bought it carelessly, and if he wanted to sell it, he would have to find a fool to buy it. The housekeeper could not help but burst into laughter. So, this thing is destined to rot in the hands of the young master? As far as I know, the last time there were traces of the Heavenly Bull tribe in this sea area was hundreds of years ago. Suyu smiled faintly and flew out of the island. When he arrived at the ice and fire ship, the servants were already waiting quietly. However, the silence was a little strange. They did not say a word, and their bodies were tense, waiting for orders. Chapter 1586. On the cabin, a divine light flickered and said indifferently, "Of course it's your big brother." As a level 3 Cavern World senior, Shwele's speed was far superior to Suyu's. The butler asked, "Young master, do you want to return to the clan with us?" Shwele crossed his arms in front of his chest, his legs slightly apart, and his eyelids slightly drooped. There was a hint of provocation in his eyes as he said indifferently, "I've bought some valuable items and need to send them back to my clan in time. Therefore, I'm borrowing your ice-fire spaceship." The butler said, It's fine, we're willing to bring the young master back with us. But I don't want to go back with you. Shui Lei's gaze turned cold. He stared at Su Yu and slowly said, Your cultivation levels are too weak. If you were to encounter danger on the way, wouldn't you be a burden? Therefore, I will borrow the ice and fire spaceship. As for you, you can use the small boat that I came with. He casually threw down an ordinary boat that could only fit a few people. The butler was inwardly furious. This was going too far. Shui Lei was obviously taking revenge to redeem his reputation. However, Su Yu's attitude was indifferent. He hopped onto the flying boat expressionlessly, stood with his hands clasped behind his back, and said indifferently, Housekeeper, you take the helm. The butler felt bitter in his heart, feeling that Shui Yu was not worth it. But he understood that Shui Lei was currently looking for an excuse to punish Shui Yu, and if he were to go against Shui Yu head-on, then the consequences would be unimaginable. Suppressing his anger, the butler steered the small boat out of the scattered stars island. Shui Lei stared at Su Yu's back coldly, grunted, and returned to the cabin. The speed of the ice and fire flying ship was extremely fast, breaking through the waves of the Sea of Constellations. In the blink of an eye, it was far away from chaotic Star Island, entering the uninhabited and desolate sea. Night fell. Several strange boats chased after the ice and fire ship. All of them were dressed in black, with masks covering their faces. Shadowless swords hung on their waist. The leading black-clothed man had a sharp gaze as he ordered in a low voice, Destroy them in one strike. The 10 black-clothed men took out a pure white feather at the same time. Lightning flickered within the feathers. They threw it out at the same time. The feathers gathered in the air and turned into a dazzling bird that swooped down on the ice and fire ship. With a deafening roar, the bird exploded violently. The ice and fire spaceship was instantly blown into 2 pieces and quickly sank into the sea. Kill. Don't leave anyone alive. The leader took out his shadowless sword and charged forward to reap the lives of those who fell into the water. A series of screams resounded in the dark and cold water. Bang! Right at this moment, a black-clothed man who was flying across the surface of the water was suddenly grabbed by a hand that stretched out from the water and crushed to death. The leader of the black-clothed men paid close attention to the surface of the water. When he noticed the anomaly, he threw down a white feather. Bang! There was a muffled sound under the water, and the waves rolled. A severed arm surged up along with the wave. There's an expert. Get into the water and kill him. The black-clothed man shouted coldly. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The 9 black-clothed figures dove into the water like water birds. Soon, the blood was boiling. The leader's expression relaxed slightly. Then, a figure with a broken arm suddenly rushed out of the blood and grabbed the leader's head with lightning speed. The one-armed figure took out a talisman and stuck it on the leader's forehead. Memories immediately flashed in the leader's soul. Crack! A few breaths later, the one-armed figure crushed the leader's head and threw it into the sea. His whole body was drenched in blood, and his long hair and embroidered clothes were sticking to his body. His broken arm was dripping with blood, and his flesh and bone were exposed. It was a terrifying sight. Shui Yu! Shui Lei clenched his teeth, his eyes filled with hostility. His chest rose and fell violently, as if he was suppressing his anger. These black-clothed men were here to kill Shui Yu, and they mistakenly thought that Shui Yu was on the ship. In the end, Shui Lei clenched his fists so hard that they cracked. He was so frustrated that he almost went crazy. He had accidentally become Su Yu's target. Looking at the boundless desolate sea, Shui Lei roared, Shui Yu, just you wait. On the other side of the water, the small boat had a safe journey away from the random Star Island. As Yang Fan left, the plump shopkeeper of the Star Pavilion caught up with him, smiling apologetically. Take care, Mr. Shui. Su Yu looked back. What's the matter? The plump shopkeeper hurriedly waved his hands. Mr. Shui, don't be afraid. The Star Pavilion does not have a bad record of killing and robbing people. Then you are? Su Yu asked. The plump shopkeeper said solemnly, Mr. Shui, are you willing to join the Star Pavilion as an appraiser master? Hearing that, the housekeeper beside him shrieked in shock. An appraiser master of the Star Pavilion? Any one of them is a big shot comparable to a family leader. Young master, you're so young, yet you've received an invitation from the Star Pavilion? Being in the sea all year round, the housekeeper had heard of the Star Pavilion's appraisers and was in awe of them. The Star Pavilion had very strict requirements for the selection of appraisers. Every appraiser was a famous figure who had been famous for a long time. Among them, there was no lack of overlord-level unparalleled almighties and many reclusive senior experts. Otherwise, it would be difficult for them to catch the eye of the Star Pavilion. However, being famous for a long time was the most basic requirement. Apart from that, they had to go through all kinds of perverted tests. The slightest mistake would result in elimination. It was rumored that even the divine warriors of heaven and earth had been eliminated. The stringency of the selection was appalling. It was precisely because of this that the appraisers they hired were all experts among experts in treasure appraisal. Now that Su Yu was invited to join, the housekeeper could not believe it. However, to the housekeeper's surprise, Su Yu said without hesitation, I'm sorry, I'm focused on the martial path and have no interest in appraising treasures. Goodbye. Hey wait. If you join the Star Pavilion, you'll have the guidance of a famous teacher and endless resources to enjoy. The chubby merchant shouted from behind. Su Yu ignored him and sailed into the vast sea of constellations without looking back. The chubby merchant was stunned and at a loss. He had never thought that someone would reject the invitation of the Star Pavilion. Back at the Star Pavilion, the chubby merchant reported to his superiors, who reported to them one by one. Finally, it reached the ears of the pavilion master of the Random Star Island branch. Is that true? The pavilion master of the Random Star Island was a white-haired old woman. She was surprised to hear that. After a while, she said, newborn calves are not afraid of tigers. He's just a young master of the Shui family, yet he didn't want such a great opportunity. Haha, forget it, the Star Pavilion doesn't care about an appraiser. After saying that, she transmitted a message to a jade mirror. She said respectfully, Lord Hu, I've sent an invitation according to your request, but it was rejected. I feel that even though this person is talented, he's arrogant and difficult to control. He's not worth nurturing. Invite him again. A voice came from the other end of the jade mirror without hesitation. The old woman was stunned. I don't understand, why do you insist on this person? Money is easy to come by, but talent is hard to come by. Invite him personally. The old woman said, Yes, Lord. The housekeeper was shocked. When there was no one around, he said, Young master, do you know what kind of invitation you rejected? Su Yu said, I do. Then why are you still? The housekeeper was extremely regretful. He wanted to drag Su Yu back to plead for him to accept this great job. With such an identity, wouldn't he be several times stronger than a family leader? He heard Su Yu leisurely point to the horizon in the distance, saying, Human vision is limited, but the world is vast. The further you look, the longer the road. The housekeeper was stunned. He pondered the words and suddenly felt that they were profound and profound. After a long time he said, Thank you, young master, for your advice. It was I who misunderstood. After a pause, the housekeeper said, Do we need to report this to the master? If the master knows about this, he will definitely look at you in a different light. His days in the family will be much better. Shaking his head, Su Yu said, It's a secret. There is no need to say it. It will only add to the trouble. The housekeeper sighed. He didn't want this and that. Wasn't the second young master too low-key? Feeling regretful, the housekeeper steered the small boat eastward. The Twin Star Island was the skeleton of a giant sea beast. In terms of size, it was twice the size of the island where the Murong family was. On the island, there were more than 10 forces of various sizes. Two of the forces were the most powerful, almost controlling the entire island. The rest of the small forces depended on the two forces to survive. One of them was the Xue family, where Xue Yu was, and the other was the Li family. The ancestors of the Li and Xue families developed the island together and had been thriving ever since. But as the forces of both sides continued to expand, there was eventually friction, which became more and more intense until they became enemies today. 1,000 years ago, the Li family discovered an unexplored underwater relic and obtained many resources. Hence, their development was far ahead of the Xue family. In the past 1,000 years, the two families confronted each other, and the Xue family gradually declined. Because of this, the Xue family tried to find external help, such as the Murong family, which was connected by marriage. His return naturally attracted the attention of the Li family. The master of the Xue family, who was also Xue Yu's biological father, Xue Yuntian, a level 1 Cavern World senior, personally led the elders of the family to welcome him. Seeing that Xue Yu had returned safely, his eyebrows relaxed slightly. But when he noticed the 4 level 2 Murong family elders who were guarding Su Yu's return, he was surprised. He knew those 4 people. They were Murong Feng's trusted subordinates. They guarded Murong Feng all year round and would never leave unless there was an important matter. Now, they were escorting Xue Yu back. Even if it was to protect the map, there was no need to do so, was there? How could he understand that Murong Feng cared for Xue Yu and did not want anything to happen to him? What a surprise! You came back safe and sound. I thought you would lose an arm or a leg. Among the people of the Li family, a tall man with a face full of pockmarks walked out. He was the second strongest young man in the Li family, Li Jun, who was a level 2 Cavern World senior. He had admired Murong Qingqing for a long time and had pestered her for a long time. Unfortunately, the Murong family and the Xue family were close, and his efforts were fruitless. Therefore, it was not hard to imagine how jealous he was of Su Yu. Su Yu glanced at him. Because he did not know him, he chose to be careful with his words and actions. He pretended not to hear him and ignored him. Oh? You have a bad temper? Do you think you are superior now that you have become the son-in-law of the Murong family? He who doesn't know that you got Miss Murong by luck. In terms of strength and status, who do you think you are? Li Jun mocked him mercilessly in front of the people of the Xue family and the many onlookers. Strangely, the onlookers did not react. They had the same expression on their faces, as if what he said was natural. Xue Yu's reputation in the Xue family and on Double Star Island was obvious. However, right at that moment, a wisp of divine energy suppressed him, causing Li Jun's body to tremble. It was an elder of the Murong family. He took a step forward and stared at Li Jun coldly with slight disgust. Young man, show some respect. Xue Yu is the son-in-law of the Murong family. An outsider like you is not allowed to gossip about him. In terms of talent and status, you probably don't even deserve to carry the son-in-law's shoes. Chapter 1587. Li Jun narrowed his eyes. You dare attack me? Elder Murong glared at him coldly. You spoke rudely to the Murong family's youngest son-in-law. I did not slap you, but only forced you back. That is already giving face to the Li family. If you dare to spout any more nonsense, it will not be so easy. Even if the Murong family and the Li family go to war, we will not hesitate. Do you have the guts? Li Jun shouted. Elder Murong laughed. This is the will of the Murong clan master. If you do not believe me, you can ask the elders of the Li family to come and see if the Murong family is true to our words. The undisguised threat and unyielding attitude were beyond the expectations of the Li family. Li Jun was shocked. Sensing that something was amiss, he furiously flicked his sleeves and left. The 4 elders cupped their fists at Xue Yuntian with a smile. Xue clan master, we have handed Xue Yu over to you. Farewell. Xue Yuntian urged them to stay. Elders, please stay. You have come from afar. If the Shui family does not entertain you, we will be accused of neglecting our esteemed guest." The 4 elders chuckled and declined politely. "Shui clan master, please find some time to have a serious talk with Mr. Shui. You will be pleasantly surprised." Haha. Seeing the 4 elders leave, Shui clan master was shocked. He had long been curious about the 4 elders' unyielding attitude. In order to protect Shuiyu, they had even threatened to go to war with the Li family. Judging from their words, they weren't bluffing, but they really had the determination to do so. He could not understand why the Murong family valued Shuiyu so much. Not only did they send 4 elders to escort him, but they had also gone against the Li family for him. "You're come to my study," Shui Yuntian said with a glint in his eyes. "In the study." Shui Yuntian stared at Suyu. "I need an explanation." Suyu said calmly, "Perhaps I fit the Murong clan master's temperament." "Is that so?" Shui Yuntian narrowed his eyes and said, "I've been friends with Murong Feng for hundreds of years. I'm well aware of what kind of person he is. He may seem amiable and approachable, but he's actually arrogant and proud. Even your big brother, Shui Lei, isn't worthy of his attention. I find it hard to believe that Murong Feng would fancy you." "You tell me the truth," Shui Yuntian said. Suyu muttered to himself irresolutely for a moment, then cupped his fists and said, "Father, I'm guilty. If you don't punish me, I'll dare to say it." "Go ahead," Shui Yuntian said generously. Taking a deep breath, Suyu said, "Actually, Murong Qingqing has already cast her pearls before swine. Now that she is pregnant with my Shui family's flesh and blood, the Murong family's master can only grit his teeth and swallow it. That's why he is so reluctant to protect his child." "What?" Shui Yuntian opened his eyes wide, staring at Suyu without blinking. After a while, he said, "You said that you and Murong Qingqing, that's right." Suyu raised his head and said, "Although we aren't husband and wife in name, we are already husband and wife." Patter. The teacup in Shui Yuntian's hand fell onto the furry carpet, drenching the tea. "You!" Shui Yuntian pointed at Suyu, suddenly laughing. "Well done. As expected of my seed." Suyu was stunned. Did he really believe her? To think that Murong Feng was such a narcissistic person. "I never thought that he would have such a day. No wonder he treated you so well." "Haha." Shui Yuntian laughed. After a long discussion, Shui Yuntian watched Suyu leave amidst his laughter. "Tell Qing Wei to come see me." With a faint smile, he summoned the housekeeper Qing Wei, who had accompanied Suyu on this trip. Qing Wei said respectfully, "Family leader." "Hee Qing Wei, you have done a great service in escorting you. Later, go to the accountant and collect 500 absolute beginning coins." Shui Yuntian was in a good mood, and his rewards were especially generous. Qing Wei was overwhelmed by the favor and repeatedly expressed his gratitude. "Qing Wei, tell me what you saw along the way. Right, especially the matter between you and Murong Qingqing." Shui Yuntian's face was full of smiles as he sighed. "Who would have thought that you, whom I was most worried about, would profit from his misfortune?" Qing Wei was startled. "Shui Yu and Murong Qingqing?" Thinking for a moment, Qing Wei understood what Shui Yuntian meant and couldn't stop smiling. He told of how Suyu had been looked down upon by everyone in the Murong family and even had his dignity trampled on, only to reveal his hidden sword technique and shock everyone. "Hee family leader, you are the one who hid it the most. To think that you secretly taught the second young master such a powerful sword technique. That kind of experience surpasses even the eldest young master and the young master of the Feather God clan, to Obalun. That's why Murong Feng treated the young master so well." As he spoke with a smile, he suddenly noticed Shui Yuntian's stiff expression. His heart thumped, wondering if he had said something wrong. He hurriedly said, "Family leader, did I say something wrong?" Not only did he say something wrong, he said something completely different. What he wanted to hear was how Suyu had hooked up with Murong Qingqing. What he got was something else entirely. Cheng Wei, say it again. Don't miss a single word. Shui Yuntian recovered and asked in bewilderment. Cheng Wei's heart was anxious as he recounted everything that had happened on the Murong Island. After listening, Shui Yuntian was shocked for a long time. Revolving demonic moon style? A level 4 mortal fairy repelled a level 2 cavern world senior with one sword strike. How is that possible? He had no idea that Shui Yu was proficient in such a mysterious sword technique. After being shocked for a while, Shui Yuntian's face was brimming with excitement. He could not help but laugh heartily. Good. Good. Like father, like son. Yuer has not said a word for many years. He has been secretly honing his sword technique. It really surprises me. At this point, his face was filled with guilt. For many years, I have focused too much attention on Lair and neglected Yuer. As a result, he has been quietly training and accumulating his strength. After a moment of silence, Shui Yuntian said, Cheng Wei, bring Yuer to the ancestral land. I will give Yuer this year's baptism qualification as compensation to him. Hearing that, Cheng Wei was extremely excited. Tears of joy welled up in his old eyes. The second young master had finally made it. The baptism qualification was once a year. Only the family leader had the right to enjoy it. It had an extraordinary effect on honing one's divine path. For many years, the family leader had given the baptism opportunity to the eldest young master. He had never considered the second young master. There was no other reason than it would be a waste to give it to the second young master. I thank the family leader on behalf of the second young master. Cheng Wei knelt down gratefully and rushed back to inform Su Yu. Su Yu was currently training in his room. To break through to the realm of deities, the only way is to reach the pinnacle of divine paths, Su Yu muttered to himself. Others only need to complete one divine path to become a deity, but I need 10,000. The worst thing was that the law of time had fallen into a deep slumber. The remaining 2,000 divine paths had to be comprehended by Su Yu one step at a time. The amount of time it would take was immeasurable. Second young master. Suddenly, the housekeeper's voice came from outside the door. Su Yu stopped training and opened the door. What is it? Why are you in such a hurry? How can I not be? It's a joyous occasion. Cheng Wei was out of breath. Su Yu was surprised. What joyous occasion? The family leader has decided to give this year's baptism to the second young master. This is a privilege only the eldest young master can enjoy. Baptism? Su Yu felt that it was strange, and he replied calmly, Oh, second young master, this is a chance to hone your divine path. Cheng Wei could not help but explain when he saw Su Yu's expressionless face. Su Yu raised his brows. Hone his divine path? For someone like him, who cultivated multiple divine paths at the same time, this was like giving him a pillow when he was sleepy. Su Yu's face was filled with joy as he inquired about the details of the baptism. The so-called baptism was an annual worship ceremony at the Twin Star Island. When the ancestors of the Shui and Li families wandered here, they discovered that there was a special bone marrow left inside the giant beast's skeleton, which had a mysterious effect on honing one's divine path. That was why they chose to settle down here. Both sides agreed that once a year, each family would send one person to the altar to worship their ancestors. After the worship, a year's worth of accumulated bone marrow would gush out from under the altar. Under the baptism of the bone marrow, one's divine path would be honed. In the past, the Shui family had always sent Shui Lei as their representative, while the Li family sent their eldest daughter, Li Yu, a woman who was as talented as Shui Lei. According to the agreement, the two families would worship their ancestors in another month. Young master, you must seize this opportunity. If you can become a cavern world master, the family leader will look up to you even more, Cheng Wei advised. Su Yu nodded. Yes, I understand. After a pause, Su Yu asked, Cheng Wei, is there any business on the Twin Star Island that can make money? After the incident at the Starry Pavilion, Su Yu realized that he was short of money now. If he wanted to break through the shackles of 2,000 divine paths, he would need a lot of money. If he only relied on the Shui family, he would be controlled by others. It would be better to earn money himself. Earn money. Qing Wei knew Su Yu's situation very well, so he was not surprised at Su Yu's thoughts. There are many ways to earn money, but it's difficult to earn big money. The ways to earn big money are basically monopolized by the two great families. To earn a decent amount of money, you have to ask the local tyrant here. There are many ways to earn a small amount of money with just a few Taichu coins. Su Yu frowned. What was the use of a few Taichu coins? Are there no other ways to earn big money? Su Yu asked. Qing Wei sighed bitterly. Money is not easy to earn. There are ways to earn big money, but none of them are suitable for you, young master. For example, you can form an adventure team and explore the seabed of the Star Ocean. If you can uncover undiscovered underwater relics, you will definitely make a fortune. However, this method requires thousands of people to organize it, and it will take decades or even hundreds of years to succeed. Another way is to forge high-grade divine weapons, produce top-notch elixirs, translate all kinds of alien divine books, and so on. All of these can earn big money. Unfortunately, these require top-notch talent. Such talents would have been recruited by the big forces long ago. Why would they be willing to stay on the Twin Star Island? The butler said helplessly. He felt that the young master was too ambitious and had thought too far ahead. However, Su Yu's eyes suddenly lit up. He asked, "You mentioned translating various alien divine books. What is that?" The butler said, "Over the years, many underwater relics have been salvaged. Many of them have been lost or even extinct. The things in them, including the various divine techniques, are all recorded in the alien language, and no one can understand them. Out of desperation, many people who obtain them put them up for auction or put them up in the trading house, offering a huge reward for talents who can translate them. Generally speaking, the lowest level of divine techniques, if translated, can be sold for 1,000 Taichu coins. The highest is a priceless treasure, and it is said that it can be sold for 100,000 Taichu coins. At least 1,000? That made sense. If the value was too low, no one would be willing to hire someone to translate it. Su Yu was envious. To others, this profession might be beyond their reach. Chapter 1588. After finding out where the trading house was, Su Yu rushed there immediately. Of course, he was not foolish enough to show himself. Instead, he disguised himself and came to the trading house. The trading house was jointly established by the Shui and Li families. It was a very fair trading platform. Cultivators put their items on the platform, and the platform helped them sell them to customers. The platform collected half of the fees. For cultivators without connections, it was an excellent place to go. Therefore, the place was bustling and crowded. Su Yu came to the special area for magical technique. All kinds of secret techniques were sold here, and there were many people looking to choose from them. However, some other places were deserted. It was a rather large area with many eye-catching signs. Secret Manual of an Unknown Race, priced at 1,000 Taichu dollars. Secret Manual of the Soul Clan, looking for a translator, 3,000 Taichu dollars. Secret Manual of the Demon Clan, priced at 5,000 Taichu dollars. The dazzling array of secret manuals made Su Yu's lips curl into a smile. After looking around, Su Yu's eyes fell on a sign. Secret Manual of an Unknown Race, looking for a translator, 10,000 Taichu dollars for a complete translation. 10,000 Taichu dollars was not a small fortune for Su Yu. Su Yu gently pulled out his palm and removed the sign. A faint space energy gushed out from the sign. The next moment, he appeared in a closed secret room. There was a staff member of the trading house waiting in the room. Judging from his bloodline, he should be from the Li family. He was about 40 years old, and his expression was cold as he asked mechanically, "What do you want?" "To translate the language of the other races," Suyu said calmly. The middle-aged man's ears twitched. He raised his head and looked at Suyu in surprise. Translate. Many of the translation deals in the trading house had been left untouched for hundreds of years. He was stunned to hear that someone was willing to accept a translation deal. "Why can't I?" Suyu said. The middle-aged man said hurriedly, "Yes." "Which book did you translate?" Suyu handed it over. He glanced at it and could not help but frown. "This one? Are you sure? The owner of this book has half of the translation. If your translation is even the slightest bit different from the one obtained by the owner, I'm afraid the owner will not be satisfied. Forgive me for reminding you, but even the most famous language master of the Twin Star Island could not satisfy the owner of this book." In other words, he was trying to dissuade Suyu from wasting his time. Suyu said, "How will I know if I don't try?" The middle-aged man frowned and said, "Fine, if you want to try." Suyu flipped open the book and read 10 lines with a single glance. It was as if he was reading the human race's language. When the middle-aged man saw this, he could not help but shake his head and chuckle. Even the most proficient master of the Twin Star Island had studied it word by word. To him, this young man was obviously trying to deceive him. In less than the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, Suyu had finished reading it. Then, he took out a jade pendant and used his soul to record the first half of the translation into it. "You, the book, to be, Su to see." The middle-aged man, ta to see, to Su, Suyu said to be. "You, Su, the Su to a reply to you to the sect, Su, you too soon, he Su." The middle-aged man put down the communication device, looked at Suyu, and waved his hand. "Go, don't waste our time. Otherwise we have the right to deal with those who disturb. But, his translation is more accurate." A delayed voice came from the communication device. "Oh my God! It's unbelievable. I almost gave up, but there really is a master who is proficient in the Black Fox language. Please ask the master to give me the second half of the translation. I am very satisfied with this deal." In the secret room, the middle-aged man's face was as stiff as stone. Suyu looked at him. "What do you have the right to do to me?" The middle-aged man looked at Suyu as if he was looking at a monster. His lazy expression was replaced by awe. He stuttered, Since the seller has agreed to the deal, then the deal is done." He took out 10,000 Taichu coins, and Suyu took out the other half of the jade pendant. After the two sides confirmed, the deal was completed. Suyu received the 10,000 Taichu coins and returned to the outside world. In the secret room, the middle-aged man cursed. "Damn it, I ran into a black fox." However, soon after, another figure arrived in the space vortex. Without looking up, he said angrily, "What are you doing?" "Translating." The familiar voice made the middle-aged man feel as if he had been struck by lightning. He left his chair abruptly and raised his head. His eyes widened as he stared in disbelief at Suyu, who had returned. He was surprised. "You want to translate the secret books of the Black Fox clan? But there is only one secret book of the Black Fox clan in the market." "Oh, I know," Suyu said calmly. "I am here to translate the green snake language, crack." The middle-aged man almost dropped his head in shock. You are a black fox, and you want to translate the green snake language?" Suyu shook his head. "I am not here to translate the green snake language." "Didn't you say you want to translate the green snake language?" The middle-aged man looked puzzled. Suyu did not speak. He threw the book on the table, and more than 10 secret books of different languages fell. The green snake language was only one of them. You want to translate all of them?" The middle-aged man stuttered. Suyu said, "Of course." After saying that, he flipped through the books. He continued reading 10 lines at a time, as if he was reading the most familiar books of the human race. 2 hours later, Su Yu closed the last book, carved 10 jade pendants, and threw them to the middle-aged man. Contact the owner of the book. The middle-aged man swallowed hard, his hands trembling as he contacted the owner one by one. The results, without exception, were all shocking responses from the owner. These transactions were completed in a short period of time. After completing the 11 transactions, the middle-aged man felt like he was in a dream, his whole body trembling uncontrollably. These transactions were all listed for at least 20 years, and the longest was 80 years. However, in just one day they were all completed. It was too nature-defying, too shocking. One person was proficient in 11 different languages. He was extremely proficient in every language. It was the first time he had met such a person. At this moment, the middle-aged man knew that he had met a peerless master. When he returned to the outside world again, Su Yu weighed the 40,000 Taichu coins in his hand, and a faint smile appeared on his lips. He did not choose to deal with the translation, but looked for the secret books that sold the unknown languages. As long as the price was reasonable and the divine techniques recorded in the secret books were powerful, he would buy them all. After translating them on the spot, Su Yu pulled out a sign and came to the secret room again. His arrival made the middle-aged man's eyelids twitch. He thought to himself, "Is this young man going to complete the translation transaction? I have something to sell." Unexpectedly, Su Yu did not come for the translation transaction. The middle-aged man's heart calmed down a little. Selling something? Not bad, not bad. He forced a smile and asked, "Excuse me, what do you want to sell?" Bang bang bang. Su Yu casually threw out 100 books of divine techniques translated from the unknown languages, smashing them down on the middle-aged man's face, making muffled sounds. The middle-aged man was almost sold. He was still in shock as he flipped through the translated book. He was so shocked that he trembled. "You translated all these? Or you?" Su Yu said lightly. "Sell all these books, these are the prices I marked." The middle-aged man took the list and looked at it. He was shocked. "What? The divine techniques of the Green Bull clan are only sold for 40,000 Taichu coins? You know, senior, don't you know that the lowest level of the Green Bull clan's divine techniques can be sold for 50,000 Taichu coins on the market? There is also the Toad clan and the Water Bird clan." Su Yu shook his head lightly. "It doesn't matter how much I sell, I just want to cash it in quickly." The divine techniques of the Green Bull clan were bought by Su Yu for 4,000 Taichu coins. After the translation, he sold them for 40,000 Taichu coins. What was there to be dissatisfied about? Gritting his teeth, the middle-aged man said, "Senior, please wait a moment." After saying that, he immediately contacted someone in secret. Soon after, the middle-aged man said, "Senior, there is a big shot who wants to buy all the translations in one go." "That couldn't be better," Su Yu said lightly. Soon after, another middle-aged man appeared in the secret room. He was stronger, with the strength of a level 2 cavern world master. Obviously, his identity was extraordinary. He personally handed Su Yu a total of 200,000 Taichu coins and accepted all the translations. However, he did not leave immediately. Instead, he said mysteriously, "Senior, I have a book here that has been translated for 100 years. It is priced at 100,000 Taichu coins. I wonder if you can. Let me have a look." Su Yu stretched out his hand. The middle-aged man's eyebrows were filled with anticipation as he handed the book over. Su Yu looked at it and was slightly surprised. He murmured, "I didn't expect a fourth-rate clan like the Spiritual Sword clan to have gotten their hands on the divine techniques." Hearing this, the middle-aged man trembled, his eyes full of excitement. Obviously, Su Yu was right. Su Yu was obviously a beat slower as he flipped through the book. It was a little strenuous. However, in the eyes of the two middle-aged men, his posture was still calm and composed, like an otherworldly master. They were shocked and did not dare to breathe. After the time it takes to burn a stick of incense, Su Yu quickly carved a jade pendant and threw it over. Song of the Blue Heart Sword, a good sword technique suitable for women to cultivate. Take it. The middle-aged man examined it and was overjoyed. From the sporadic translations over the years, he found that there was no problem with this person's translation. He generously handed Su Yu 100,000 Taichu coins on the spot. Su Yu left the secret room expressionlessly. When he arrived outside, he left without hesitation. Not long after he left, a few members of the trading house rushed over. In the end, Su Yu was already gone. Hearing this news, the middle-aged man with a higher status sighed. What a pity! If we could invite such a master to our Li family, it would be like adding wings to a tiger. Back at the Shui family, Su Yu removed his disguise. Unexpectedly, as soon as he entered, Ching Wei, who had been waiting for him, said anxiously, "Young master, where have you been? The master has summoned you. He wants you to come to the living room as soon as you return." Su Yu was startled. "Oh? What's so urgent?" Ching Wei's face was gloomy. "Something terrible has happened. Just now, a mysterious master appeared in the trading house and landed on Twin Star Island. He easily deciphered hundreds of foreign clan divine technique. In the end, the person on duty today was a member of the Li family. All of these divine techniques have fallen into the hands of the Li family. After receiving the news, the master urgently summoned everyone to discuss it. This is a crisis that our Shui family has not encountered in a long time." Chapter 1589. Su Yu was slightly stunned. A few books of foreign divine techniques could cause a crisis? After a pause, Su Yu said, "Let's go take a look." In the living room, the important figures of the clan had gathered, including more than 20 elders and many core members of the younger generation. Their expressions were solemn, and the atmosphere was gloomy. Su Yu entered, intending to stand aside quietly, but he was late. How could he not attract attention? "Shui Yu, why are you only here now for the emergency meeting of the clan?" An elder, who looked extremely old, scolded him in public. He was the most senior elder in the clan, the Lone Mountain Elder. Shui Yuntian had to call him ancestor when he saw him. This person had a lot of authority in the clan, and everyone had to respect him. For many years, he had valued Shui Lei and did not care much about an ordinary junior like Shui Yu. "Sorry, I was delayed, so," Su Yu said. "Delayed?" The emergency meeting of the clan symbolizes the survival of the clan. What matter is more important than the emergency meeting? Why don't you tell us? The elder shouted again. Su Yu frowned slightly. It was obvious that he was agitated and had nowhere to vent. And Su Yu, an insignificant junior who had just made a small mistake, was the perfect target to vent. "Why aren't you saying anything? Come, let everyone hear the reason for your late arrival." The Lone Mountain Elder did not like Su Yu's calm demeanor. In his opinion, Su Yu had to kneel down and beg for forgiveness in order to be forgiven. "Lone Mountain Elder, let's get down to business. I will punish you for being late," Shui Yuntian said calmly. He did not like the Lone Mountain Elder. The Lone Mountain Elder flicked his sleeves and looked straight at Shui Yuntian. "Fine, then give us a plan." The Li family obtained so many foreign race divine techniques, among which there is no lack of profound secret scrolls that have been hanging for hundreds of years. In particular, one of the swordsmanship, Blue Heart Sword Song, was the famous Spirit Sword clan's swordsmanship at that time. If the genius of the Li family finishes cultivating it, the younger generation of the Shui family will be no match for him. As for the other powerful divine arts of the other races, they will be successfully cultivated by their juniors. The younger generation of our Shui family will be much weaker than them. At that time, it won't be long before the extinction of the royal family. Hearing this, everyone's expression became gloomy. Shui Yuntian sighed and said, "First, we found the ancient ruins, and then we obtained 100 divine arts of the foreign races. Is it the end of our Shui family?" Many venerable elders felt hopeless. The ancient ruins from 1,000 years ago had already widened the gap between the two clans. Now, the other side had another 100 divine arts of the foreign races. Although he was envious, there was nothing he could do. Shui Yuntian said, "The plan now is to defend and attack. Guard means that starting from today, the Shui family's disciples must strictly cultivate. I will arrange for all the elders to come out of seclusion and personally teach the disciples. At the same time, they would allocate more resources, increase the difficulty of the trial, and increase the number of tests. Those who failed would be severely punished by the clan rules. Try not to pull too far away from the current generation of the Li family. Attacking is like mending the pen after the sheep are lost. Mobilize the people in the clan to find out the whereabouts of that senior expert. Over the years, our Shui family has collected no less than 500 foreign divine art. If we can ask that senior to translate for our Shui family, it's not impossible to surpass the Li family." Even the elders who usually did not care about worldly affairs agreed without reservation. The clan was at a moment of life and death. Even their old bones had to shine. As for the second, many elders sighed. As the saying went, mending the pen after the sheep is lost is never too late. But regarding this matter, it was indeed too late. There is no need to waste energy and time on searching. The Li family could not keep that senior. How can we find him? Plus, if I were that senior, after being exposed, I would leave this place to avoid unnecessary trouble. The lone mountain elder gave up. Shui Yuntian said, "It is best not to give up until the end. What if that senior is still on Twin Star Island?" Although he did not believe it himself, he had to give his clansmen hope. "If you want to find him, go find him. Do not waste the clan's resources," the Lone Mountain elder said. Shui Yuntian frowned. Lone Mountain had used his seniority to publicly contradict him more than once. If he punished him severely, it would hurt the hearts of the other elders. If he punished him lightly, the other would not care. "Lone Mountain elder, you are wrong. If we can find that senior, it will be worth spending any resources," Shui Yuntian said. The Lone Mountain elder snorted. "I object to using the clan's manpower and resources on a hopeless matter." Shui Yuntian clenched his fists, feeling powerless. Sometimes, when he wanted to do something, he would be held back. "I agree with father's opinion." Suddenly, a voice came from the younger generation. There was only one person who had the guts and the qualifications to speak on such an occasion. It was the only young master in the clan, Shuiyu. "Father is right. We must not give up until the very last moment. Hope is always given to those who persist to the end in despair, not those who give up halfway," Su Yu said with fervor and assurance. "Now that there is a glimmer of hope, why do we not grab it with all our might? Instead, we let it slip away? Are we going to learn from the ostrich? When the wolves attack, we do not choose to run with all our might, but bury our heads in the sand and be eaten by the wolves." Hearing that, everyone fell into deep thought, feeling that it was reasonable. Whether they found that senior or not, the Li family would rely on the 100 foreign tribes' divine techniques to soar. Could it be that they did nothing and watched the gap between them gradually widen before their eyes? The Lone Mountain elder glared at Su Yu. "I did not say that I am not working hard, it is just that the direction is wrong. Instead of pursuing that elusive opportunity, it is better to be down to earth and diligent in teaching the younger generation from now on." Many people nodded. What the Lone Mountain elder said was not unreasonable. He was still staring at Su Yu. "I have just said that there is no need to use the clan's manpower and resources. Since you are so confident, why don't we leave the search for that senior to you? After all, the Shui family does not expect you to inherit it." "Lone Mountain elder, you have gone too far." Shui Yuntian's tone turned cold. The Lone Mountain elder snorted, but he did not dare to continue. His words were quite blatant, even though it was a well-known fact that the Shui family did not expect Shuiyu. Shui Yuntian said, You, Su Yu said calmly, I understand. Leave the search for that senior to me. He had accepted the task so easily, which made many elders look at him differently. Compared to Shuiyu, who used to feel inferior, the current Shuiyu seemed to be a different person. The Lone Mountain Elder said coldly, Searching for a month is the same as searching for 100 years. Without a deadline, who knows how long you will be searching for? Forcing Su Yu to sign a military pledge? Everyone was a little dissatisfied. Lone Mountain Elder, isn't it too much to make things difficult for a junior? Pajuan Elder, who was ranked second in the clan, said. The Lone Mountain Elder sneered. Wasn't he boasting just now about how people should persist in despair? If we do not give him a military pledge, how can he feel despair? Lone Mountain Pajuan Elder said angrily. The other party's unreasonable pestering was really infuriating. The Lone Mountain Elder sneered with his hands behind his back. He stared at Su Yu, waiting for him to speak. 3 days. Unexpectedly, Su Yu calmly gave a short number. In just 3 days, he wanted to find the mysterious person who might have left Twin Star Island? The Lone Mountain Elder's eyes sharpened. What if we cannot find it in 3 days? You will be punished according to the family rules, Su Yu said. At the same time, he asked, what if I find it? The Lone Mountain Elder looked away and said indifferently, Then I will support you this once. Support? Su Yu asked. The Lone Mountain Elder said, The 10,000 Dragon Cave is about to open. With your performance in the tribe, you will not have a chance to enter, even if your father is the tribe leader. However, with the support of me, the first elder, there won't be a problem. 10,000 Dragon Cave? This was the second time Su Yu had heard of this place. The first time was when Murong Fong had asked him to pass a dragon searching plate to Shui Yuntian. Come to think of it, it should be an extremely important place, right? It's a deal, Su Yu said. The Lone Mountain Elder sneered. Then I will wait for your good news. If you fail, you will be punished along with your lateness just now. The meeting ended on bad terms. In Shui Yuntian's study, his face was full of reproach. How could you be so foolish? Was he easily goaded into making a military pledge? And 3 days at that? 3 days. Even the organized troops were in a hurry. How could he find the master whose identity and face were unknown? It's okay. Su Yu comforted him. He was the master himself, and it would take less than a breath. 3 days was too long. Shui Yuntian looked at Shui Yu and said guiltily, It was my incompetence that dragged you down just now. Don't worry, I will arrange a trial for you in 3 days. That old man of the Lone Mountain won't chase after you to punish him. Su Yu did not know whether to laugh or cry. He sighed inwardly. Although Shui Yu was not outstanding, he was Shui Yuntian's biological son after all. After a pause, Su Yu said, Since I dared to make a 3-day promise, of course I am confident. Shui Yuntian's pupil shrank, and he said in surprise, You know where the master is? Su Yu touched his nose and said, To be precise, I know him. If you want to see him, you can do so at any time. Crack, Shui Yuntian crushed the teacup with one hand. The sharp fragments pierced into his palm, oozing divine blood, but he was completely unaware. His eyes widened and his breathing quickened. He stood up from his sitting position and said, You are not lying, are you? Su Yu smiled faintly and asked, Do I have a motive to lie? Upon hearing that, Shui Yuntian clasped Su Yu's shoulders with his 2 big hands. His eyes were like copper bells, staring at Su Yu. His face was filled with ecstasy. Where is he? Take me there quickly, I want to see this master in person. He seemed to have seen the master sitting in the Shui family and translating the various foreign divine techniques.